Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in today as we've got ourselves a jam-packed show for you today. Seahawks news popping and bubbling every which way but loose. I'm going to be taking a little bit look back at this schedule that we've got coming up on deck here for your Seattle Seahawks, because there's been a particular thing I've noticed about this schedule that is working in the Seattle Seahawks' favor. You plunder from the Rams a little earlier today, but let me give you a little bit of an update right off the rip here with where we're at as far as the practice squad, because I know that may be the first question here off the top rope from the folks in the chat here, but we are going to pepper on through today here on the Seahawks Weekly Roundup. This is a show dedicated to just looking at the past Seahawks news, talking about whatever currently is going on at the moment, revisiting the prior game just a little bit, getting that one little bit of a final look at that last game. And so we're going to be going through a lot of stuff today. Strap in, get yourself ready to go, get yourself a cup of coffee, because we've got a lot to cover. First off, when it comes to the update on the practice squad, you currently have a few different guys that have been announced here, and we've got Jamie Sheriff coming back, inside-outside guy, maybe an inside linebacker, use him off the edge a little bit. Courtney Jackson is a guy you brought from the Broncos over, and this is a wide receiver punt returner kind of guy. So this is a guy coming into Seattle that maybe with a little bit of a long view to this, where you think that he can maybe be a very, very good punt returner. I think he averaged like 14 yards per punt return in college in his final year. So you're looking to kind of bring him in as potentially a guy down the line for that if it doesn't work out with Torrey Horton. Ricky White. So you got two receivers named White on the roster here. Ricky does maintain the kid out of UNLV that they took in the 7th round. So he's on the practice squad. Jarek Reed, Frederico Moranges, and I put the International Pathway Program because with that, you can have an extra practice squad player if you have a player that's from the international pathway of things, which Frederico is. So you have one extra guy you can have with that. In the two recent additions, Seahawks added 2 running backs, so I nailed that one on my prediction with these guys eventually getting to the practice squad. Damian Martinez and Jarcadia Wright, both are going to be on the practice squad. I'll continue to update this list as we'll get more names trickling on in here throughout the day. It's going to be, I know I say condensed show, we're going to kind of just rock and roll through today, so not as much of interaction on the chat. It'll be just kind of rolling through some of this news that we got to cover because we've got a lot to cover. So we'll keep you guys updated on that practice squad and what's going on with that as we get more information there for our Seahawks. The 49ers were quick to go plucking off of our secondhand parts. They wanted what was left on our plate. So no, I'll eat that. No, I'll have that. Here, let me have that. I've already chewed on it. No, I don't care. I'll eat it anyway. But it's got my like gross stuff. I don't care. I'm hungry. I'm just so hungry right now. That's your 49ers. They go out and grab Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Might be their week 1 starter here at this rate with the way that receiver room is getting thinned out like the herd. And so Marquez does go to the Niners. Not a big surprise from a Seahawks perspective on this one, as many of you were worried about this and hoping that maybe we could move him in a trade so the Niners wouldn't have this opportunity. I think by all accounts, the Seahawks tried to move him in a trade, tried to figure out if they could find some. But unfortunately, you didn't have any suitors. So Marquez doesn't have the greatest of name league-wide in that respect of things. I think he's a competent receiver and certainly will help out the Niners. Hurts to lose that one, but right on the heels of learning that you're going to lose this guy, which wasn't a big loss because you feel pretty good about your wide receiver room, we get the absolute fantastic news that the Seattle Seahawks have grabbed, stolen, pilfered, plundered from the Los Angeles Rams, Chris Paul Jr. Chris Paul Jr., this is a guy from a lot of people's accounts that was very well graded coming out of this draft. I think he had a lot of variance in what people saw of him, from those that really loved him, and then those that were just kind of felt like, oh, he's okay, he's fine. Part of course, that very, 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 very talented Mississippi defense that we now have 2 players from, Jared Ivey and Chris Paul. So maybe Jared Ivey doing us a bit of a solid on this one, saying, hey, come out to Seattle, man. They don't love you in LA. They'll love you in Seattle. And this is a guy that is a 5th-round pick for the Rams, so no just little small loss for them on this one. A guy that even people like well-respected Brett Coleman had Chris Paul as a top 32 type player coming to the draft. He interviewed him, and he was just blown away by this kid. And he's a guy that I just don't quite understand, quite frankly, why the Rams are letting him go in this situation. Now, it's kind of, I think, if you really want to break it down to two things that I'm making a guess on here, which is the team wants to go with Raider off the jump because they probably didn't feel like Paul was ready to be an instantaneous starter and take on all the duties of being the green dot helmet guy, essentially kind of the leader on that defense. They trust in Raider probably a little bit more. Some of this is Dolak, the kid that they got out of Buffalo, and it kind of maybe came down to one or the other between him and Chris Paul Jr. But you were able to snag him here, and this is a huge get for your Seattle Seahawks, who need quality depth here at the inside linebacker position, especially with Tyrese Knight's recent injury, and especially knowing Ernest Jones coming off an injury and offseason surgery himself. When you look at Chris Paul and how he performed last year in the college football, and this is just the PFF marker, but I'm going to try to show you another thing here too to get you guys a little bit hyped up on this one. You can see that he was technically rated the 18th highest inside linebacker by PFF in college football last year. What you'll notice, though, is that when you see there's not number 1 on there, there's not number 4, number 5 on there, that's because they're removing the sample size inside linebackers. You only played 100 snaps. Well, maybe you're the 4th highest rated PFF inside linebacker, but you haven't played kind of enough snaps to really be a good gauge on where you're at your play. So they kind of will push those out for the guys that have played a lot more football and have been out on the field. And as you can see with Paul, all the way down the line, from just his total defensive score to run defense to pass rush to coverage, all of that stuff very well graded all across the line for him last year with Ole Miss. This is not merely, to me, you're just grabbing some guy who's just an all-around, you're going to have him off the roster tomorrow, here today, gone tomorrow kind of guy. This is a guy that's a really big-time quality pickup for your Seahawks that I think is going to end up remaining on this roster because it just seems like he's been good wherever he's at on this. Another one that shows you a little bit of what he did last year as well. This is 2024 inside linebacker tackling. So on one side, you got the missed tackle rate. You want that the lower is the worse you are on that. So you're 25, you're bad on that with the missed tackle rate. You get up into the highs, you're in a good spot as far as low missed tackle rate. And then your stop rate. So how often do you lose the tackles? How often do you actually make the stop? And if you look here on this chart, you'll notice probably for some of you, you should be seeing a lot of very familiar names in here, like Danny Stutzman and Carson Schweisinger and Smail Mondon and Jack Kaiser, all guys drafted in this last draft, Teddy Buchanan, Jeffrey Bossa in there as well. And if you look up in the high right side corner, in the best place to be on this particular chart, you will notice Chris Paul Jr. just above first-round pick Jihad Campbell. So a lot of good statistics with this kid that will show you from last year and what he did with Ole Miss that this is a true player and this guy can roll. And this is not just a guy that disappointed for the Rams, didn't show out for the Rams, was horrible in camp, was in over his head, wasn't prepared or ready to go. Quite the opposite. Because when we look at the Rams' defensive grades here throughout the preseason, you can see that Chris Paul was the 11th highest graded player on defense for your Los Angeles Rams with a 66.3 grade. Tackling numbers were a little bit tough on him on that side of it, and it wasn't used a lot as a pass rusher. He only had about 5 pass rush snaps technically. That's big-time sample size there. But still, not badly graded there. You'll see him right there at about number 11th there on the ranking here that I'm showing you with this chart. So even when he came to become a pro, he was still playing pretty well. And so you do come back to maybe asking me, well, Brandon, why'd they let him go? Why'd they release this guy? Well, why would they do that? And I don't have as much of a good, clear answer for you. It felt like at the time when the Rams were able to get Chris Paul in the 5th round, that was kind of a little bit of a steal for them for where you're taking him. I think you understand a little bit of why he drops and that, there is some size limitations here. He is a little bit lighter. He is a little bit smaller than what you would look for at inside linebacker position. But the NFL's got a pretty rich history with undersized inside linebackers who are super quick, super fast, who are very instinctive, natural leaders. These guys can find their way in the NFL. We go from guys from London Fletcher to Ivan Pace, that the kid that Minnesota has out there is their starting inside linebacker even up into this day. There's a history to this. There's guys that can make it work at that size. So Chris Paul, big time addition here that you're bringing in off the Rams, and then you're hurting the Rams a little bit at the same time. So it's a little bit of a 1-2 there, which makes it feel even a little bit better. But this is a big time get for your Seattle Seahawks. The Rams were absolutely hoping that they could just kind of, hey, no, we cut him, but he's just going to go to the practice squad. Don't worry about it. No, we just cut him. He's not even really, he's going to be barely out there for just like 5 minutes on the open market. And then we're just going to bring him right to the practice squad. He's just barely going to be out. Why'd you take him? Why'd you take him? He's on the market. Sorry, put him on the market. So they wanted to put him on that practice squad. That was the intention for them. Didn't do it. Weren't able to get it done. Seattle's put him on the active roster spot. Love this move. Absolutely a home run here from a Seattle Seahawks perspective all the way around. The other guy that the Seahawks were able to get from the Rams was Darian Kendrick, a cornerback, also brought to the active roster. So on both of these two moves, it means there's going to be a counter of two other moves on this roster today as far as releases go to counter one to the other. So Darian Kendrick comes on to be a cornerback. Does that mean that Shaquille Griffin goes? Does that mean that it's an Amaya Pritchett goes? Hard to say on this. I wouldn't be surprised if they would just go with instead maybe 6 cornerbacks and look to pluck from somewhere else rather than cutting one of their current active guys. But this is one we're just going to have to, trace with time a little bit and see where it sort of ends up landing at. Kerryon has played a little bit of football here so far in his 2 years in the league. Former late round pick, wasn't highly looked at when he came out as far as being a really great player necessarily, just kind of a back end guy in the draft. But as you can see here, he has played almost 1,300 snaps total for the Rams over the past 2 years. So a lot of ball the guy's been able to play. Had a bit of a tough season there in his rookie year, 43.7 grade. Came back last year or in 2023 with a 59.8, but did not play in 2024 in the active roster. So an interesting move here on the Kendrick one, a little bit harder to quite understand what the team is looking to do here and why they're going this route with it, in my opinion. But nonetheless, you're bringing him in. You're looking to reinforce the cornerback room a little bit and add those guys on. So 2 additions. We've got the practice squad up on that. And we're rolling. We're rolling. So a decent day so far. We're getting a little bit more news on this kind of stuff. No real rumors as far as any kind of major trades or the Seahawks are in talks with this team or, in talks with that team. Everything is pretty well kind of sitting and set right now as it sort of stands. So that's where we're at right now. But the Chris Paul edition, big time edition for your Hawks. I think you guys are going to really love this player. He plays fast. He's just what you want from inside linebacker, where he's just going to get after it, and a complete linebacker at that. A little bit of the size limitation stuff. Maybe that was hurting him a little bit on the tackling front, which is why he was dinged by PFF this year. But like this player quite a bit. We're going to get on into some of our items from the weekly roundup, as we do with a few of our segments. But one other place I wanted to start at here, I wanted to just one little other beginning place, and I've been kind of thinking about this since the schedule's gone out and was initially released. And as that's happened, watching some of the stories go on with other teams out there that the Seahawks are going to eventually have to play this year, and then just kind of taking note of something, which is that this was an easy schedule on the surface of it from the moment it was released. It looked like the easiest schedule the Seahawks have encountered in maybe at least 5 years. And I don't think that's an overstatement. It could even be longer than that. And since the schedule has been released, there have been only kind of easier turns of the screw for your Seahawks when it comes to these individual teams. Now, it doesn't mean that the whole schedule has now been so super given just nothing but easiness and it's going to run roughshod through the schedule, no problemo. It doesn't mean that on some of these matchups that have gotten easier, that it's a guarantee you're going to get the win. But what it is that it has gotten easier off what was already an easier schedule. That's what I'm noticing with this. So I'm going to go really quickly through this kind of team by team on this. And I want to kind of just break down with you guys a little bit on what I'm noticing as far as, man, this is getting a lot easier in certain spots. This is getting set up in the right place. We're going to be able to play this team seemingly at the right time of year to be able to get after them. And I'm looking for my notes here, so bear with me here. There we go. We got our notes on. So let's go through this really quickly on the schedule. I want to show you guys on this, and I think you guys are going to dig this because I think we're looking very good for this upcoming season and the way that the schedule is setting up and the way that the teams that we got to play and the timing of how we've got to play them and setting up. It is all breaking down very nicely for your Seattle Seahawks. So first up, let's go to week 1. And not all these matchups are going to be super easy. Not all these matchups are going to be just, hey, we'll just, swan dive our way in there and then drop on our back and just kind of drift in the water to our win. But week 1 is going to be war. No doubt about that. San Francisco 49ers, divisional rivalry. They are going to be week 1 hungry as possible because they know what's on point for this upcoming year. They know that, the window's almost closed, and I think you're going to get a sense of desperation, which is more going to make this a bit of a war in this week 1 matchup. With that said, though, they come into this decimated in their wide receiver room. No Brandon Ayuk, not likely to have any Juwan Jennings, no Jacob Cowing. Justin Gage, a guy they brought in, is not likely to be playing for them on that. They're going to be rocking out there with Ricky Pearsall, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore. These are the guys that are going to be playing a significant amount of snaps at the wide receiver position against your Seahawks come week one. That is a big-time advantage versus, think about it in years past, Deebo Samuel and Christian Brandon Ayuk out there with it on that side of it. Then Juwan Jennings being your third receiver at times in these games. And now all of those guys are gone for this upcoming matchup. They have some other injuries too. In addition to this, Dominic Pooning is just getting back to starting practicing. That's a very important piece for them on that offensive line. Malik Mustafa, a very strong rookie year out of the safety position for the Niners last year, will also be missing this game that upcoming week. So the Niners aren't maybe decimated by injuries, but they are certainly walking into this game with a little bit of a limp. This is in addition to the fact that the running back room got just completely blown out to the point that they had to add Byron Robinson at the final hour of training camp to bring him in to back up Christian McCaffrey. Now, Brian's a good addition. He's going to help that team out. But it does speak to a little bit of where they've got already positional groups that are getting lean, and it is going to help you week one at home to play this team if you're not getting them at full strength, and you're absolutely not getting them full strength. I still think the war aspect of this will carry the day and will win out, and that it's still going to be one hell of a battle. But I think us having a little bit of a couple of these built-in advantages coming into this game are going to be mighty helpful. And it's nice being able to play this Niner team, even though they're an older team. You don't want to play older teams in the early part of the year. You want to play them later in the year, which we're going to come back to with this Niner team. But still, I think we've got a good chance in this opening matchup, even with it being as tough as it will be. Week two, we got a battlefield. But as you can see on this, and I'll have a few battlefield games that we've got to go through on this, but you can see I also have listed below this, underneath Pittsburgh there, fatal flaw, because the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely have some fatal flaws built in. Aaron Rodgers came late to this team through the offseason. He didn't go early on before the OTAs. He took as long as he possibly could, did a little European trip, just, half-in attitude that he sometimes seems to have towards the NFL at this point. Finally comes along to the Steelers pretty late in the process now, and now he's trying to do that catch-up thing that he tried to do with the Jets. Rodgers' hubris just seems to be that I don't need that extra time. I can come in at the 11th hour. Doesn't matter. I'll be just as good as ever. I don't know that he will be. And it's a weird matchup of Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steeler program there that has a certain way they go about their business, that has an expectation of their players. Rodgers really does seem to go kind of outside that box. The Tomlin-Rodgers dynamic, I've already gotten some weird vibes off of the Metcalf-Rodgers dynamic. I don't know that thing is going to fit really perfectly well. Rodgers loves to throw fade balls, and he loves to throw back shoulder fade balls to his receivers on those 9 routes, even more so at times than just throwing a pure 9 ball over the top. And so that means you're going to get back shoulder contested catch situations with DK Metcalf a lot. And that's not necessarily DK's game. And so a lot of what Aaron does well doesn't necessarily lean into what DK does well. Aaron's done excellently in his career, especially with guys like Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson, and knowing his receiver is going to run the exact precise route, and he's going to put the ball in this exact right place and put it with some real heat, and it's going to be able to be a catch and a run after the catch a lot of times. But that's not as much the case with DK on the route running side. How's that pairing going to really work? How's Rodgers going to deal with more of the run-first centric nature of that offense? Some of this will maybe take a little bit of time throughout the year to kind of get either into disrepair or just completely work. But I do think you're not getting them fully synced up into week 2 where they're just riding like they're going to ride. If it does get all coming together, that's more of like, to me, a week 8, week 9 situation. I think week 2, you're still working out the kinks. You got Troy Fatano, who missed all of last year, their number 1 overall pick from last year, coming back off of his knee injury. He's starting his first game there for the Steelers. They have a pretty good offensive line. They've done a good job of solidifying that. But then you got Jalen Ramsey in there for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So how is that going to work? They're going to try to use him in this slot, safety, new role. We'll see. Darius Slay starting for them at outside cornerback at 44 years old. I don't know. They also did lose their first-round pick, Derek Harmon. He's going to be out for this game as he had an injury sustained in the final preseason game. So that defensive front gets a little bit easier, but you still have Cameron Hayward, Keanu Benton, Watt, Highsmith. It's still going to be difficult there. Like I said, this is a battlefield game, but there is some fatal flaws that do exist within the Steelers team that does provide you a little bit of an easier track to maybe making some headway there. Week 3, New Orleans Saints. I shouldn't have to explain this to you guys on this one. The Saints lose Derek Carr this offseason. They're going to rock with Spencer Rattler by this point through. Probably by week 3, he's still starting at that point. Spencer Rattler does not scare me in the least. I feel like the Saints are in track to try to go get the number 1 overall pick at this point, that they're in line to go do it. And so I'm giving this one the easy button. This is one of those ones that's been set up very nicely for our Seattle Seahawks. The Saints are an aging roster. They've got an offensive line that still does have some questions, though they put a lot of investment into it. Kamara's getting up there. Don't have a lot of guys at the wide receiver position that can do a lot. This is why they made the trade for Devon Vele, a 4th and a 7th round pick for that guy, because they don't trust their depth on that side of it. So this is an easy one, and I don't have to break down too much. I think I got you guys with this one. Arizona Cardinals. Mike McDonald stacked boxes, freaked Kyler Murray out. Kyler's encountered stacked boxes in his career, and those tend to come on the back of heavy blitzes, and he's got a way to get around those heavy blitzes. I'll just run around the back of the pocket, and I'll escape with my super speed, and I'll just get away. The Seattle Seahawks did not blitz Kyler Murray like that last year. They instead stacked up the boxes on him, confused him. They ran 2 different lane sets where their defensive tackles would get upfield on a lane. Their outside edge rushers would get upfield on the lane. And what you did on 2 different layers at that point is enclosed Kyler Murray in that pocket and gave him no escape. And they executed it brilliantly. They were really able to shut down that Cardinal offense in both of the 2 games that they faced them. I think Mike McDonald's defense is the worst style of defense for Kyler Murray to have to deal with. I think there's defenses that he can exploit. I think there's defenses he can be good against. But I think Mike McDonald's defense in particular against Kyler Murray is one that is just, it's tough for him. It's a long day at the office for Kyler. It was last year. I think it's going to be again this year. I don't have faith in what the Cardinals have done this offseason. I don't think they've done enough to address the wide receiver position. I don't think they've done enough to address their offensive line. I think that their defense got heavily invested in the defensive line and that they were really just obsessed with making that thing the end-all kind of be-all. And it came at the cost of other positional groups. They've already had some injuries at their cornerback room, losing 2 corners for the year, another corner injury on one of the guys that they got in the back end of the draft. They're now going to be relying on Max Melton and Will Johnson, 2 guys with a fairly decent injury history themselves, to now ride throughout the full totality of this season as their outside corners. Their nickel corner's good, but you can see with them right there that there's going to be, potentially some depth issues that go on with that team. And not to mention, again, I just think that they did a little bit of a step backwards from a personnel standpoint this offseason versus continuing to make progress there underneath Gannon. Week 5 is my kid. Week 5, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No way to cut this one, no way to slice this one. This will be a battlefield, and no, there's no fatal flaw in the game. The Buccaneers got one of the better offensive lines in the sport. They've got a very strong defense. They've added a ton of receivers in there around Mike Evans to reinforce themselves for Chris Godwin if there's any problems with him, though he has come off the pup now. They got some good play from the running back Irving last year to give him some solidity there as far as that stands. Baker Mayfield throwing 41 touchdowns last year. He's been a really nice fit for that Tampa Bay team. This is going to be a tough one. No way else to cut this one. This is one of your tougher games on the schedule. Week 6. The Jacksonville Jaguars. And why do I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to lose to your Seattle Seahawks? One word, 2 syllables. Duval. I said one word, 2 syllables.
He took us in the house and served us pancakes.
Now, look, I once made the mistake with Mr. Pew, 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 Pew Man, Jonathan Gannon, and some of the awkwardness that guy had with him. And you maybe shouldn't hold these coaches to account on these press conferences. Nick Sirianni, of course, once talked about watering plants and putting seeds in soil, and everyone's like, boy, this guy's never going to do anything. And he's gotten to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1. So maybe Mr. Duval, maybe he is got the answers himself. Maybe he's going to prove to be the right hire out there. But I don't think Jacksonville had their pick of the litter. I think that a lot of the good head coaches out there in this league look at that situation with the owner there and how that's gone and said, I don't know if this is really a place that's rightfully set up for me to find success. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a team with some talent. They're a team with a guy in Trevor Lawrence that they're waiting for the thing to lock in and cook up and let's go. Come on, Trevor, become what we thought you were with the number 1 overall pick. They've supplied him with some receiving help now over the past couple of years, but I still don't buy into what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. I don't buy into this coach in his first year there. I think that they still have as much good as they have as much bad on the other side of it. It's an unpredictable team, and that there is still, with the potential they have on this team and decent edges, good inside linebacker, some okay corner play to the outside. You got Travis Hunter's addition into the mix and how that'll factor in. But I just come back down to it saying we're going to take Jacksonville apart in this football game, in my opinion. Week 7, Battlefield, Houston Texans, another one of those games. But, this is also going to be one that's going to have a big fatal flaw to it. The Houston Texans are going to be trotting out a offensive line that is worse than what the Seattle Seahawks trotted out last year, most likely. At the very least, almost equivalent when it all stands down. They moved Laramie Tunsil, their franchise left tackle, this offseason. The answer there that they replaced him with was the guy that backed up Christian Darrisaw last year with the Vikings. So you guys know, we've been talking about all this Cam Robinson, he came in there for Darrisaw and the Vikings offense went into the toilet. He came in for Darrisaw and they just couldn't pass protect. Well, that guy's going to be the day one starter for C.J. Stroud as his blindside protector, and it only gets worse from there. Laken Tomlinson at left guard. They got a guy, Juice Scruggs, starting at right guard who should actually be a center, but out of necessity, because Kenyon Green couldn't develop, you got to kick him over there to right guard. And right tackle, they're also a little bit weak there as well on that side of it. So the Texans, as it stands on this, absolutely have a really monster defense. C.J. Stroud is, I think, legitimate. Dell is going to be out for, I think, the season with them, or a good amount of time. They have reinforced the wide receiver room there with a couple of draft picks out of Iowa State this offseason. Joe Mixon did just go down, so it looks like he probably will be out for this game. So that does weaken down their running back room just a little bit. And when they called upon their backup running backs last year, there was a big dip to when they went to those guys from Joe Mixon, in my opinion. So this is a team that, though they are strong and they'll be a playoff contender, and C.J. Stroud has been absolutely kind of what we thought he would be when he was drafted out. And especially last year, we got dinged a lot for, and not really people were taking into account. People don't do this, where they just will take into account the fact, or not take into account the fact, that a quarterback's just inundated with pressure and that he's got very little time to operate, and it's going to reduce down his effectiveness as a quarterback. That doesn't mean then that C.J. Stroud's got a sophomore slump or that the prior year was some mirage. It just means that the Texans needed to fix the offensive line, which they didn't do. So that's my fatal flaw with them. It's going to be a tough game, but even in these battlefield-like games, I still do see a little bit of a fatal flaw with these teams that we can come in and take advantage of as it stands right now. That flaw will be there when we arrive there. Not that it's theoretical, but it absolutely is there as we stand right now, and it's only probably due to get a little bit worse as far as their situation across the board when we go through 7 weeks of the NFL season. Now, Seattle will have its own little dings too throughout that time worth tracking, but we're sitting pretty good walking into the season. Week 8 is going to be a bye. Nothing there, but we do get a nice rest to then have to play this next tough team, which is going to be the Washington Commanders. I did put this one as another one of those battlefield kind of games just because of the fact that the Commanders were conference championship last year. They were a hair away from getting to the Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels is legitimate. I'm not going to take anything away from the kind of year that he was able to have. I still think that Deebo Samuel looks fat, and I still don't know what they've got enough there at the wide receiver position around Terry McLaurin to make it go. Defensively, too, it did feel like at times last year there was some smoke and mirrors going on with their ability to keep teams down. Like it just sort of seemed like they're offensively, they got up on teams. That allowed their defense to kind of play to a certain way. I don't know if they're going to get the benefit of that this year necessarily, but they do play in kind of not a weak division, but you got two teams you can kind of beat up on, I think, in that division. And this is just going to be probably a battlefield game anyway. You want to kind of cut it on that. As long as, of course, Jaden's playing. This is one of those ones where you lose Jaden and that matchup looks a lot different. Something I'm wondering about Jaden Daniels too as well with this is whether or not with his kind of somewhat thinnish build, he's not the most solidly built guy. He did a great job of avoiding the hits last year, but can he do that again for a second year? We'll see. Week 11 with the Los Angeles Rams. This is going to be a tough game. I wouldn't try to cut this any other way than that, but it does come down to Stafford's back. Can his back last into week 11 of this NFL season? And I got to say that considering where the back's at right now and that they're going to try to make this work, I think this is a good time to be able to play the Los Angeles Rams at this portion of the season, being that he's going to be under a lot of test up until this point to see if that back can withstand the beating that potentially he could be in for a little bit this year again as an older quarterback, and how many shots can he take at this point? It's backs are weird. You think you get over the hill on them, and then it comes right back at you. And this process has been a long one with the Los Angeles Rams and trying to, okay. has been a long one with the Los Angeles Rams and trying to figure out how to get this back right for game one. And it's come right down to the end. They're getting it back, but let's see if it's going to hold up for a whole year there with them when it comes to this Rams team. This is going to be a tough game. I have the Rams right now currently winning the division as long as Stafford can stay healthy, but it's all on that back. If Garoppolo's got to come in there, Stenson Bennett's got to come in there, that team's not going to get anything done, in my opinion. You're not even getting to the playoffs with either of those other two guys. Tennessee Titans, easy button, baby. Easy button. You got a rookie quarterback. You got no fallback with even a Will Levis, the kid that they took out of Arkansas, that receiver a couple of years ago that they traded away A.J. Brown to go get. He's injured once again. Tajay Spears injured with a high ankle sprain. They've already kind of been beaten up with some of the injuries there with Tennessee already out the gate. To me, this is going to be one where you're going to be able to walk right over them. And it's a good time of year to get. You get a tough game with the Rams and then a tough game with the Vikings after this. Good time to have a nice little easy button game on this one against the Titans. Week 13 against the Minnesota Vikings, battlefield game. This is a little bit like the Commanders one where we'll see where they're at with the quarterback position. Is the Vikings are going to go with McCarthy at quarterback after he missed all of last year with the knee injury. He's going to essentially be a rookie quarterback this season, and where he's starting from, we'll see how good he can be. Is he able to just match the performance of what Darnold did last year? I don't think so. You're due to at least go a little bit backwards on that. But we have to acknowledge as well with the Vikings that Jonathan Allen added the defensive line, that they made a couple of signings in free agency for their offensive line to rebuild that interior as they did. They brought back Byron Murphy. They really spent this offseason. They truly indicated, like, we're going to go forward. We're going to get after this. We're not going to go lightly on this thing. So I think this is another one that's going to be a bit of a tough game. No doubt about that. But also that's as long as, of course, McCarthy's there and that McCarthy's good, which we have to see on both of those accounts if that's going to prove to be the right thing there. Atlanta Falcons, week 14, right place, right time. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm looking at the Falcons right now, and I'm not starting out on something with this that I haven't been consistent with. I thought the Falcons were absolutely morons for moving their first round pick to the Rams. That was a move that just, I think, is going to bite them in the butt in a big way. And they're going to look back on that and say, man, why did we do that? That was not the best of approach, especially giving the Rams basically the pathway to their next quarterback. And I think that this is already showing itself just a tiny little bit when, you look at right now, here we go with another injury on that offensive line for them. And they've lost their Caleb McGarry now for a year. This is why they traded with the Seahawks for a 7th round pick yesterday to get Michael Jarrell there. And so they are a team that has Michael Penix at quarterback. They're going to be balanced. They're going to run the ball. They got Bijan Robinson. But the thing with Michael Penix is that he's a guy you have to keep clean. That was the whole thing with him coming out of college. If you're drafting Michael, you got to give him a clean pocket. You got to give him a quality offensive line. You start getting him hit too much. You get him inundated with pressure too much. He's not going to deal with that well. Doesn't have the mobility, and he does have a little bit of this will add up over time thing really quickly on you if he's taking too many hits over even the course of a game. I saw this with that final Michigan game that he played. You see this a little bit throughout his career. And the Huskies did a good job with DeBoer and Grubb there of giving him a lot of clean pockets and not always having him under a lot of pressure there. But I think here with the Falcons, he walks in last year, grade A offensive line by all accounts for the most part. But then this offseason, you lose Drew Dahlman. Now Caleb McGarry is out for the year at right tackle. You have Jake Matthews there who's going into year 11 or something like that right now. So he's getting a little bit up there in age as far as their left tackle is concerned. In addition to this, line might not be as good as it's been recently. And if it's not as good as it's been recently, I think that's going to be trouble for Penix. And by the time you get to week 4, I think a lot of this will have added up in a major way on this Falcons team. They're also heavily leaning on a lot of very young edge rushers who have not produced in this league. And that's also something that we've seen in Seattle. We've tried to do before. Darrell Taylor's, LJ Collier's. I can go through a big list of guys with you guys that first year out the gate, second year out the gate, maybe they're not producing at the highest level. That's taking them a little bit of time to learn how to become really good pass rushers in this sport. And the Falcons are leaning on a lot of those guys to make it happen, letting a guy like Grady Jarrett go this offseason. So I think you're catching the Falcons in the right place, right time. Maybe not a pure easy button kind of situation, but I don't think the Falcons are going to be particularly good. I think that they're going to be handing the Rams a top 10 first-round pick, and I think your Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to take advantage in this particular matchup. Week 15 against Indianapolis. I am not going to believe for a moment that this googly-eyed sucker here to my right is going to beat us twice in 2 years. I don't think it's scientifically possible. I think it defies the laws of gravity. of time and nature and space. I don't think that there's a multi-universe where this guy's going to beat us twice in 2 years. This man with his eyes is not beating us twice in 2 years. Bar none. I don't care. Not happening. Daniel Jones, Indianapolis Colts. No. No. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And that's a Colts team that's been wayward and lost and spinning in circles and without a plan for many, many, many years. Haven't maybe been purely bad, but they've not also been a team that's really been making progress. They seem stuck. They're one of those teams that's always perpetually in purgatory because they can't make a decision, sometimes to when to tear it down, when to pull it through, when to reset this thing up a little bit. And going with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback this upcoming year, I think our Seahawks weren't able to take advantage last year. Some of that had to do with you playing a lot of games in a shortened time period. Some of that had to do with some of the injuries you were dealing with at that point in time. Some of it was that was just your probably worst played game of the season. You just had that particular game being one that you didn't show up for across the board, by and large. But I don't think that's going to be the case in this one. Week 15, you're going to have a lot on the line when you play this Colts team, I think, including possibly the division. And all the much more reason I think we're going to be hungry to go take it. In addition, I don't think Colts are going to be particularly good at this point in time. Week 16, the Rams, again, can Stafford last 16 weeks into this season with that back? Is it going to hold up over that time period in that way? How many epidermal shots is he going to need by this point? 7? 8? I don't even know. I don't know. They lost track maybe, perhaps. But it's all hinging a little bit on him with that. I think, too, with the Rams, with the way that we're going to be committed to running the ball, we have doubled down on the commitment to utilize a part of the offense to what has the Rams most vulnerable. They have a defensive line that is set up to rush the passer. That's what they want to do. Get up on you and then rush the passer. That's their recipe for success. And if you can run the ball on them consistently, like the Eagles showed in both of the two matchups that they played them, you can take that Rams team down. But you need the commitment and you need the effectiveness as a running team, which I think is going to come up big for the Seahawks. But again, where Stafford with his back, is that thing really, really going to hold up? Week 17, Carolina Panthers. I think, again, good point of the schedule. You're catching them a little bit later on in the year. This is a team that's still a little bit thin to me. They don't have a lot of depth to me. It's a team that's still kind of building things up. They're still putting the bricks in place. Haven't even gotten the roof on yet. I love the addition of Teteroa McMillan. I think that pairing with Bryce is going to be great. But Xavier Legette hasn't really come forward for them as the other receiver that they took high a couple of years ago. They don't have a lot of other skill position players out there that really elicit much excitement. Chuba Hubbard's a nice back, but he's not a back that really should be a bell cow guy. And unfortunately, because Jonathan Brooks is still dealing with an ACL that he's torn multiple times, one of their former high picks that's on the shelf, he's probably going to get too many carries. And I would say by week 17, I wouldn't be surprised if Chuba's kind of wore down at that point if he's asked to carry so much of the load as it appears that they're going to set him up to have to carry. When you look at them defensively, J.C. Horn's a great cornerback, but might be starting Mike Jackson over there at the other cornerback position. You have a defensive line that is not super talented and wasn't super productive last year. In fact, the team cut away Jadeveon Clowney, their best pass rusher last year, probably their best edge run defender in addition to that, and they didn't have a lot they brought in to supplement that. It's just hoping guys kind of develop in-house, like Charles Harris is their best pass rusher on their entire team. Now they get Derek Brown back from a major injury. We'll see where he, stands on that. They've had a couple of other injuries pop up. They had their Nick Scordon, the kid that they took in the second round, is going to miss the whole year. So the Nick Scordon was the guy that they brought in to replace Jadeveon Clowney. He's out for the year. He's just gone now. So the Carolina Panthers, I think, are just in too raw of a state still, not in a strong enough yet. They're getting in the right direction. I think they're slowly starting to make some pretty interesting moves. That's still a thin roster. That's still a roster that's missing difference makers, especially on the defensive side of the football. Final week of the season, San Francisco 49ers. I think they're going to be fully cooked by this point. I think that you're getting an aging roster walking into this season. I think that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and places that they don't talk about at parties, are real worried about this roster this upcoming season and have really probably already made their peace with, we're just going to have to get through this year a bit and get on to the next year, clear the books through a little bit, get ourselves into a little cleaner state of things, not be as stuck behind that 8 ball. This is why they've eaten $100 million on their books. That's right. They have $100 million of dead money right now on their books, in addition to, I think, like $35 million of actual cap space. So about $135 million of their cap right now is going to nothing. And that's with an aging roster. That's with a roster that's missing depth. That's with a roster that's already getting decimated at a couple of different positional groups before we've even gotten to the season. Before we've even gotten there. And I think by this point, this aging roster by weekend 18 at the end of the year, I think that at this point, the Niners they have an easy schedule, but if the health doesn't hold up, that easy schedule is not going to matter because they're just not going to be good enough. And I think you get them to this spot, my opinion is fully cooked by week 18. So those are my picks there. Is there some that are going to be some tough battles? Yeah, every schedule is going to have some tough battles within there. But even some of the tough battles, there's the fatal flaw aspect that exists. And everywhere peppered throughout this schedule, you either are going to have easy games or easier games. And it's all a nice little mix. The bye week coming at the perfect time of year, right in the middle of the season to give you that rest at just the right time. So the NFL has in a lot of ways really set us up in this schedule. And then that's only been reinforced since the schedule came out. It's only gotten better since the schedule has come out. And it's going to give our Seattle Seahawks that much more opportunity to rise up and go take that division this year. If in other years, like it was a couple years ago when we got that 7-game gauntlet, you'd have to say, well, maybe it's just more of just only the playoffs is what we can hope for best case scenario here because the schedule is just so hard. And you knew that coming in a couple of years ago when you had to play the Rams, I think, a couple times, or was the 49ers a couple times, you had the Cowboys in there, I think you had the Eagles in there, you had the Ravens in there, all in this stretch of games. And there was a couple of those that were on condensed schedule games like Thursday nights mixed in there. You don't have that going on this year. Nothing on the surface or has been reinforced since we've had the schedule come out that gives you those same kind of worries and concerns. It looks a lot easier, and this should set the stage up for your Seattle Seahawks to find success this upcoming season, in my opinion, because of it. Let's keep this on rolling through here if we can, and let's get to a couple of the segments. We're going to do a little bit of a truncated segments today on this because I want to do a little bit of a quicker show here, and we're already 40 minutes in here. So I'm a long talker on this one. But let's start off with a final look back at this Green Bay Packer game. I don't think we need to give it a deep look because we had third and fourth stringers out there by and large. Not a lot really going on with it. But a couple things that we can kind of look at and take away from this that I think are kind of interesting. So let's start out with our PFF grades of the week. All right, so the PFF grades of the week. First, we'll go with the offense. Why did Cody White make this team? Well, he had himself a hell of a game. Highest rated player for your Seattle Seahawks at the wide receiver position with a 78 grade. Nick Callerup, another question you might be asking with him. Why did this guy make the roster? Well, when you post a nice grade like that along the track like he did, that's part of what will help you earn it and get it. This was also a guy that gave a lot of money to as an undrafted rookie free agent, so they've had some good feelings towards him even before getting him onto the roster. Mason Richmond, Frederico Menages, also well graded in what they did on the offensive line. You love to see that. Damon Martinez, decently graded there too as well. I know with Jarcadia Wright, he had the big run, but they kind of dinging him on the other runs, maybe with some of the vision stuff that's there. Some of these other guys just aren't even going to be on the roster. Cable Dew 65.2 was all right. And then you can see at the bottom here, you've got Jalen Milroe down at the end. He had a tough game from the quarterback position and how he was seeing it. As many have noted, and as absolutely is true, he wasn't exactly always set up for success in this particular game, but it was rough. It was kind of what it was on that. And Sato Lamea, why is he moving on here? I've mentioned many times before, look at Lamea there at number 12. Look in particular with Lamea at number 12 with the 33.4. And what is that? That's the pass blocking grade. So I've mentioned over and over again with Lamea, the big thing here with him is just that he just can't pass protect at a functional level. It's not a matter of being just bad. I mean, he cannot at a functional level pass protect. And that's a limiting factor, a big time limiting factor, even if you happen to be a guy that is a really good run blocker and what you bring to the stage on that. Defensively speaking, Ty Akata with his one-handed interception also had a hell of a game. Rewatching the tape, I'll tell you what, he was flashing all over the football field with a 92.4 grade. J.R. Singleton, nose tackle for your Seahawks, also played strongly. He had himself a punch-out fumble, which aided him on his grade, looking a little bit better on that. But he had a strong game otherwise, a couple tackles for loss in this game. In addition to that, Alfonso Tupolutua, the former UW, I can't say his name, but the former UW linebacker, acquainted himself well. See if that's enough to keep him on some practice squad somewhere. Drake Thomas, 76.1, made the roster. Patrick O'Connell played solidly. Connor O'Toole as well in there. Well graded across the board with those guys for the most part. Solid. On the bottom end of it, you had Jared Ivey, which I think that's a little bit of a tough grade on Ivey. I didn't think he played that bad. Shaquille Griffin gave up a couple of completions. So that makes sense there. Nehemiah Pritchett only had 7 snaps. So when you see the 38.4 grade, let's consider the fact that's a big time sample size, and he's got the one big play he gives up down the field. But that wasn't really his fault. He was tight in coverage. He got his head back around for the ball. He tried to make a play on the ball. It's just a bang bang play. Sometimes that type of stuff will happen. I think he's taken steps forward this training camp. He's improved, and I think that the grade isn't representative of where he's kind of at. But the Ivy one was a little bit tough. I didn't think I saw that one as to. I thought he played better than that on the tape that I saw. As far as special teams go, your best special teams are Jarek Reed. Big part of the reason why I thought he could potentially have made this roster is he's such a good special teamer. Jamie Sharif did well. Jercadia Wright, Connor O'Toole, Cal Rupp played well on that as well. So there you go with the special teams grades as far as that goes. I don't ever know what to take away from these ones, or always how they grade those exactly, with that. Let's take a look at the next segment I've got to post here, and we're going to look at our underrated hero of the week. And no surprise here that I'm going to give the nod to our guy, Cody White. And you saw he was the highest rated guy with PFF on the board for your offense at 92 grade. And it wasn't merely just to me that he was playing well. It was that when you needed him in this game to step up big, when you needed some big completions, when your offense couldn't get much moved throughout the course of the game, he came up when you needed it. It reminded me a little bit of last year in the Rams game where your receiving core got a little bit lean. You got Geno down, backed up in his own end zone. Everything's looking very desperate. Geno drops back and throws a 50-yard seed just barely over the top of the cornerback's hand for the Rams, completing it to White. He had a touchdown catch, I think, in that game too. This was a little bit of shades of that at times to me, and watching White and him playing this game. But he first started it out with a punt return, actually. Media player here. First started out with a punt return. And notice this here on the all-28-2 angle. I got to show it from where he caught the ball, by the way, because I got to be careful in some of the footage with this. But you notice here when he catches this out the gate that he's got a defender bearing right down. His guy's blown the block here. So the guy's walking behind his guy, so he's one-on-one heads up with a guy here. He's got to shake, and watch him shake him. It's around, goes back, does a nice little cut back to the right, and then he finishes it with a hurdle. Let's go, huh? I didn't know he had all this in his bag with the whole yak stuff, huh? I thought he's just more kind of your typical wide receiver, angular build. But it gives you a nice little return here out the gate, which is pretty impressive. So this is on this first drive here, and everything off this is going to build off. He's not done much onto this day. Hasn't played a lot up until this point in the day. But now he's starting to come in. Now he's starting to do something. So we got him first up here. Runs a little bit of a stick nod route. So he's going to be to the bottom side of the formation here. You want to watch him here. And he's going to run a little stick nod. Boom, boom. So it's a little bit, you come up, you start out, you take it back up field. Is the way the route goes. And nicely run route here. You can see he kind of gets things cleared off. Corner turns his hips, finds the dead zone, sits down in the dead zone, makes the catch, keeps his toes in bounds, makes sure that completes the play. And props to Jalen here too. This might be his most impressive play of the game because he's looking left here. He's going through his reads left and then eventually coming back to the right here. But a nicely run route there by Cody White. Kind of loses the corner there. Another catch here later on in this game. Just runs a little out route, gets it upfield for a 15-yard catch. Nothing too crazy about this one here. But a nice run route. Good job getting up the field after the catch on it. And all these are happening again at the end of the game. And then including, you've got the final one where he put the stamp on it here, where he's able to make the touchdown catch. And another really nice run route. So he's going to be on the line of scrimmage as your X here. Trips formation. So let me pause it so I can show you guys here. So he's right here. Watch his route here. Nice little route run. Gets off the physicality and clears himself. It's kind of a subtle part of being a wide receiver is how well you deal with physicality running through the route. Do you get brought to a standstill? Can you keep your feet moving? Can you work off the contact? White's able to do so here. So some well-run routes on his part, some yak ability, some, hey, I can give you a little bit of something with the ball in my hands. I'm not just going to get taken right to the ground. but a nice job of working off the press coverage. And remember, when you're the X, you're on the line of scrimmage. You're susceptible to the press. See, the other two receivers next to him here, those guys are off the line of scrimmage, right? Those two guys they're 1 yard off the line, so they get free releases. He doesn't get the free release here. He's getting press coverage. So it's a harder job to get into your route than these other guys have. That's part of why an X receiver is so very important, is because they don't have an easy job of it. They don't get free releases. They don't tend to be able to be in motion. They just have to deal with that press right off the line of scrimmage and hopefully get around it. He does here and completes the process with a hell of a catch. Look at him reach up with his hands. This ball's got some speed on it. He's got a defender's hand flashing across his face, makes the catch, spins in, and goes and gets the touchdown. This is a guy that's trying to make the roster, and you can just feel wants it. Wants it. Very impressive play. So that's my guy, Cody White. Not a lot of potential heroes in the last game. Ty Akata would have been probably the other guy you would have taken a look at. He had the interception, but he also has some really good plays coming up as a tackler in space, really showing up in that way of things. The other one I want to take a look at here, the other segment we're going to run, we didn't really have a come on man moment. There wasn't really any brain dead thing going on in the field in this particular game. Likewise, there wasn't really a big hit of the week. I went through much of the tape, and everybody's kind of just getting tackled. Nobody's ever taken any big shot. But I did want to do one other part of our segments here on the Seahawks Weekly Roundup today, and that is going to be the play call that hit just a little bit different.
This one hit different.
Okay. So on this one, I can get to my stinking, keep losing my spot here. Losing my spot. This is going to be the Jarcadia right. Wait, let me get my thing right here. All right, so this is going to be the Jarcadia right run, which is going to be my play call of the week. And what Kubiak does with this and what Shanahan does with this running game is oftentimes find a way to create numbers games to one side of the field. Oftentimes through the structure of your run play, set up for the run to be naturally open because you kind of get the defender's eyes to look a certain way. You attack the numbers game to one side. You attack where they're lighter. You get them to move somebody in motion. Now the box becomes even lighter prior to the snap. There's a lot of this built in with the pre-snap motions and adjustments with this thing off the rip, first and foremost. So you have a four-man front here. This is basically a nickel kind of look here from your Green Bay Packers. Seahawks run the same kind of equivalency in the way you look. You got the wide edges that I've talked about where you've got those defensive tackles in tight, a one tech and a three tech, and then you've got the wide nine edges on the other side of that. So already some natural gaps that you can potentially exploit within this Packer defense. As you can see, look at the space between these two guys, for instance, here. The space between these two guys right here. Look at the space between these two guys right here. Puts a lot on these linebackers to clean that up with the gap integrity, because that's a lot of width there between the guys and how you're rolling. What you do prior to the snap, though, on this play is look at the receiver going in motion. And then as the receiver's going in motion, notice what you're doing at the top of the screen with that. Now, remember what I mentioned. What you want to do is you want to split the field in half. So split the field in half. Let's say write down that hash mark, if you will. You want to create a better numbers game to the right side of the field. You want to have Packers left with a too many a deluge of guys to the left side of the field. So the guy's going in motion and he's carrying the top side corner, as you can see right there. So at the snap, that top side corner is moving with that guy and moving in the opposite motion of where the running play is going. Now he's got to hold because Jalen's running read option and he might keep this. So he can't just, go right to the back, that corner on the top side. But what you've done with the motion is essentially remove that top corner there from the play. He's out of the play completely now. So you've created the numbers game to one side. We go post snap here. And look at the Packers to the left side. Look at all those Packers we got one, let me pause here. So we got first guy, this guy, he's moving in the wrong direction. You got three guys here in no man's land, all kind of holding off Milrow. You've got a hole developing right here already to the right side of the line, just naturally. That gap I was talking about, look at how that natural gap here, right here, this gap between these two Packer players, look at how that widens out instantly post-snap. And it's not really happening because of your guys getting pushed at the snap. It's just because it's the natural vulnerability when you're going to line a wide nine with a one tech. And that's a tremendous amount of space between those two guys. And so all Cable Dew's got to do here, I think that's Cable Dew with 77, or it might be Richmond. I forget the two of them. But all he's got to do there is just get a hand on him to help out his center, or to help out his center. I'll put a hand on him and the block's already laid. It's done. I can get to the second level. We got the space we need here. That hole's already created, and you haven't even pushed anybody off the line of scrimmage. But then the benefit comes in as you've moved that corner to the other side, and now Jarcadia Wright can hit that hole, and he's just about gone. And 37 ends up making the tackle, but not before he gets down to the 3-yard line. That shows you how much that pre-snap motion took 37 out of the play. See 37 there top side? That's the guy you move with the slot motion. And then we look here. Look at that hole. Bobo out there blocking Jarrell. Jarrell's not pushing his guy off the line. He's just getting him off the edge there. He's just widening out the hole is all he's doing. And because Bobo lays his final block, the play gets sprung. But it's all in the numbers game. Nobody here's whooping his guy's butt. Nobody here's blowing his guy off the line of scrimmage and just ragdolling him. All these are what you would tip. All of these are basically like finesse blocks. Just control your man, shield him away, take advantage of the nice crease that already exists in the run play. And this is the benefit of this rushing system. Pre-snap motion, confusion with the defense, attacking the numbers where you're light to one side of the formation versus the other. And all it takes is just that, and you have a guy with a home run hit. And this is part of the reason why some of you guys ask me about Kenneth Walker and why Walker, for me, is still going to be essentially the starter over Charbonnet. And it's a little bit of like, it's kind of a silly matter because they're both going to get touches, but those kind of runs like that where you give Walker that big old hole, that big ass hole, he's housing that. He's not getting caught from behind. That's a touchdown. Like just about every time when he sees it, he's never getting those holes. He's never gotten those holes consistently. So it's part of why I love this rushing play. The pre-snap motion to move the final guy away from where you want to run it. The read option look to hold the guys over here and you just take them out of the play without having to block them. Taking advantage of then the width that you get on these defensive lines in the modern era where you have a 1 tech and a wide 9 that far apart from each other. And it didn't used to be this way. You used to have the 3-4 with the wide 9. That's the new iteration of this, by the way. Back in the day, guys would be in wide 9 techniques. They'd be on the outside of that formation, but you'd have 3-4 inside. So you'd have 3 down linemen inside of the offensive line there. And so there was less of that width and space between essentially what would have been your defensive end and your wide 9 edge. So it's now a 1 tech or a 3 tech in the wide 9. It used to be a 3-4 defensive end playing like 3-eye or 4 technique next to the wide 9. You just had less space that you had as far as that natural crease goes. And this is something people are going to be able to take advantage of across the sport, not just your Seahawks, because so many teams now run these fronts. So few teams now actually will go to the 3-4 look anymore. And that's why I think the running game is going to be so effective across the board in the NFL this year. Is this the right place, the right time? The offenses have really embraced the 12 personnel and going bigger and have really embraced a commitment back to running the ball. I think this all does lead to this being a year where we do again see the running game coming again back to the forefront a little bit like it has the past couple of years. Let's see where you guys are at today. I thank you for watching. We got through that in just in under an hour there, so not too bad. Let me get a couple of the donations we've got popping here. Sorry, a little bit late on it, but I had some ground to cover today. Mumbles, thank you for the $5 donation. Brett Coleman also theorized that McVay doesn't value linebackers, and it shows with the rookie release and Ernest Jones. I think Brett's onto something. I thank you for the $5 donation as well. Appreciate that. And Brett's definitely a guy that's a big guy on Chris Paul and likes him a lot. But this is also something that's come up for me when I look at the Rams, and I kind of don't fully understand it. There are things that are true in the NFL, and then those truths get taken too far beyond the pale. You know, it's like they're a basic truth, and they get turned into like it's the ultimate truth. And the basic truth is that inside linebackers like running backs have been devalued. But then the ultimate truth is now linebackers don't matter, running backs don't matter. No. It's just that they've been devalued. It's that, you know, they're not as valued as they once were. They're not as important as maybe they once were, but they still are important. And when I look back to last year and the Eagles getting run all over by the Eagles, and that vulnerability that does exist in their defense in that way, you do come back a little bit to wondering about whether or not they're kind of being silly on this, and that they're overstating their case a little bit in their roster construction because of it, and then it's getting them bit on the butt. Because I'll tell you this, I can absolutely tell you there is a remarkable difference between Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker and Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones. Watching the tape of the 22 between those two players when you're rocking the first two guys versus when you're rocking the other two guys, night and day difference. And absolutely, everyone can feel those guys' impact when they're in there versus the other guys. You know, if these inside linebackers just don't matter, plain and simple, like Brett's kind of talking about how maybe McVay sees it, if that's the truth of it, then I don't think you're going to see such a stark change by going from 2 to 2. It's not like in Dodson and Baker's case, those guys aren't functional linebackers in the sport. Hell, Dodson went to another team and was decent enough for them with the Dolphins through the rest of the year. So it wasn't like you just got guys that didn't even belong in the league that you were starting out there. But that there is a keynote difference between going to guys that can play in the sport and guys that can excel in the sport from off-ball inside linebacker positioning. And I think that this is a little bit of a blind spot for the Rams. I think this is a little bit of an Achilles heel for the Rams. It's a pretty smart organization, but there are things that they're doing where they're trying to be a bit heavy on trend setting, where they might be pushing it a little bit too far. I feel a little bit of the same way when it comes to their defensive tackle position and their lack of really trying to beef up the nose tackle role. I mean, both of these things go together. You don't have a nose tackle, you don't have an inside linebacker, you don't have the greatest of will linebackers. You're going to maybe be struggling there. Your first line of defense is a little weakened, and then your second line of defense is a little weakened. And add on top of it too, the Rams are now going to start both Achillea Witherspoon and the Slim Reaper out at outside cornerback. So you're already then worrying a little bit about the tackling up front on the front seven, and now I got to worry about the tackling with the corners on the edges. I think we're going to come to find with the Rams on this that they didn't do enough to really take on the responsibility of owning where they needed to improve from last year and reinforcing that weakness. Instead, they just kind of left the weakness undealt with in so many ways. But they're definitely a team that does not look at inside linebackers and find a lot of value within it. They don't. Mumbles. You can definitely see that there. Troy Reader is going to be rocking out there again as their starting linebacker this year. And I mean, he's the definition of a Jag. The definition. I know they got Landman there. They like him a lot, but I don't think he covers particularly well in Atlanta. He's more of just a run-stuffing linebacker. So then you're taking a huge step back in coverage with him. We'll see with them. We'll see if they've got if they've got the juice there with it. But I do think that this is a place where they're vulnerable because of it. Radu Turkan, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate that, Radu. He says, Chris Paul Jr. to the Seahawks. Thoughts? So I did an expansive one at the front here, Radu, where I really broke down, stem to stern on him a little bit. He's a guy that there's people in this draft that are pundits and analysts wise that were super high on him, but there was a big divergence of opinion. There were those that weren't as big. Part of that Mississippi defense that produced a lot of NFL players in this past draft. A guy really well graded last year, like your 16th highest graded inside linebacker in college football, well graded all the way down the line and how he covered, how he blitzed, how he tackled. He was productive for the Rams in this preseason period and solid for them in his role and what he played for them there as well. So this is a steal in so many ways, Radu. This is a pure steal. You got a guy who's a 5th round pick for the Rams this last year. Rams have, like I said, we were talking about on the other one there with Mumbles. They've got their eye and attention on other positions in other places, and they're just not as worried about the inside linebacker spot. It's just kind of almost like they don't care a little bit. And so I think it's a big-time addition. You needed some reinforcement as far as your depth goes. He is a big upgrade over a guy like a Drake Thomas, I would think. He gives you more ability to do more things than Drake Thomas can do. He is a little bit light, like Drake Thomas. He's going to be a little undersized, a little bit lighter. But I think that there's plenty of inside linebackers in the sport who've come through the years that aren't always the biggest guys, and that it has leaned more and more in recent years that lighter and lighter linebackers are able to make it work. So I love it. He's also a leader, heady guy, smart kid, well put together as far as his mentality goes. Kind of checks a lot of different boxes that you look for, especially from an inside linebacker, especially for a guy that potentially down the road, could wear a green dot for you. Not that we're looking to up in earnest in this spot, but just that you've got the depth to call upon with it. It's home run move, Radu. Home run. It's nothing but There's no downside to this one. You made your division foe a little weaker. They wanted to get Chris Paul on their practice squad. There's no doubt about that. So it's a win all around. A win all around. Concierge with Nolan. Thank you for the $2 donation, Concierge with Nolan. Good to see you in the house, brother. It says, Jake is probably big mad about Chris Paul. Oh, he's seething. He's seething. They give up Lampkin too, Nolan. So remember with Lampkin, and on both of those accounts with Jake, on both of those two players, I was like, yeah, I get it on both those guys. I liked Lampkin a lot, and he was so impressive in preseason. And rather than IR Lampkin with the designation to return, which would have still kept him on the roster, and then they could have released him at that time and then stuck him on the practice squad, they just outright released him, and the Eagles jumped on him with 2 feet. The Rams have gotten 4 players taken here as far as from their cuts go. So, and that's more than anybody else in the NFL on that side of it. So, it's he's not feeling good about it because on both of those 2 players, he was worried that this could break out like this. This could twist in this direction, and it's happened. It's happened. He's frustrated. He's out there on Twitter talking about Rams getting what they deserve for doing it. You know what I mean? Steve says, you didn't answer my question last night, Brandon, at the Hawks Nest. I'm sorry, Steve. If you want to post it in, I will try to answer it. Sorry, I missed it. Craig Houston, Brandon, how's Cup looking? Cup's looking really good. In the training camp practices, I watched him because, of course, he hasn't played any preseason games. But in the training camp practices I saw him, he was making plays, and he doesn't look reduced down as far as, slow or not able to cut or, his hands weren't, holding up. That I didn't see anything that was glaringly a limitation to his game or something that showed that he's somehow got a fork sticking out his back at this point. He looks solid to me. I don't know why his name's Pooh, Kirian. With Lance, Paul can bulk up a little bit in the gym. He'll be fine. There's time for him to gain some weight. He's a young kid. Agreed. And these guys have been just getting lighter and lighter through the years too as well. Colin Cow, so you think MVS will give secrets to the Niners or not? How does this work? I don't think he's really in a position to be giving them secrets. I mean, he can give you some stuff, I'm sure, a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be out there like knowing all of our signs and stuff like come game day. But, there's a little bit there, a little bit of something. And Steve Holler, if you want to put your question in, I've missed it last night, definitely pop it on back in there. I'll try to look at it and see if I can catch it. Ben says Hawks will curb stomp the Steelers. Let's go. AJ Pumpkin coming in like Jaws. Yeah, she is. Steve says Murray plays well in the first half of the season. Brandon with hubris is highly underrating the Cards' improvement internally in additions and doesn't recall that the Cardinals were missing their right tackle, right guard. Yeah, I don't think that those particular guys, when they had the starters in there, were particularly really good. And teams are always going to miss a player or two when you get into the games. If I'm not mistaken, they had a lot of the rest of their health in pretty good spot, right? They had their starting running backs, starting receivers, starting tight ends, both of them, starting defense. And we had some guys that were out as well with it. Murray blindly playing well in the first half of the season, and that just gets taken into account that that's going to happen. I can't say that I make that jump as much that's an assured thing in my opinion. The improvement internally is a hard thing to track, Steve. You're right about that. Players naturally going to get better. Players that naturally going to improve. That's a fair point. I'm okay with that. I would just say in a little bit of minor pushback, you have a lot of players that are starting from a zero place in that regard of things. Darius Robinson hasn't done anything in this sport. Max Melton hasn't done anything in this sport. Walter Nolan hasn't done anything in this sport. The internal development on certain guys has got to be then guys to me that have, Michael Wilson's not giving you more than what he's given you. Greg Dortch isn't giving you more than what he's given you. So which of these guys, I guess I'd ask you, is coming so far forward internally, so much more improved from where they were just naturally in the growth of where they are as a player? Because there wasn't a lot they did in the open market this offseason. Sweat is a fine addition. Campbell at 38 years old is fine. But those are your two hallmark signings of the offseason when you had almost $100 million to spend. And I don't think that's enough to move my needle off the spot of thinking that they've taken steps forward. But again, like I said, it's hard to say on the natural in-house improvement you might get where a Melton, an Ojolari start to give you a little bit more of something there, with that. But they're still starting Evan Brown at left guard for a full season, Steve. You're going to get Leonard Williams is going to still get that 24/7. And again, some of this comes down to, in my evaluation of the Cardinals, the matchup of Mike McDonald's defense up against the Arizona Cardinals and how it limits Kyler Murray, how it forces Kyler Murray into the limitations of his play, does not give him the escapes other defenses would give him, especially out of the pocket. And I think in a lot of ways in that way that McDonald's not solved Kyler Murray, but that he's set up with his defense to give Seahawks an advantage walking into those games. Josh says, oh my God, Philly got Willie Lampkin from the Rams. Fams are in shambles. They're pretty mad right now, yeah. It hurts. Gadless says, Murray threw 3 of the worst interceptions I've ever seen against our defense. Yeah, that's what you get with blind throwers of the football at times. And there are throws that Kyler's got to throw if he's going to commit to throwing them that are going to be blind throws, like the interception to Ernest Jones in the middle of the field. He couldn't see Ernest. He had no idea Ernest was there. He just kind of blindly hoped to throw it to the spot. Yeah, Steve, I don't know about the receivers are going to be improved. Why? What has Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson shown? I'm okay with Marvin Harrison, and Marvin Harrison's maybe going to take a step forward, but it's not like he lit the world on fire last year. It's not like him and Kyler Murray look like a match made in heaven from a chemistry standpoint. This stuff could happen, but it's not that we've been given stuff as a baseline that it is going to happen or that it just is assured or that it's more likely to occur than it's not. I think at the very least we'd go maybe 50-50 / a couple of these guys. I don't think Greg Dortch suddenly comes out this year and becomes one of the best slot receivers in the sport. Like he's just suddenly figured it out. Nor so when it comes to Michael Wilson. You're still limited there at that wide receiver position. Big time. Again, too, Marvin might be a great receiver in this league. Marvin might be fantastic. We might also come to find, as I had a lot of suspicions from last year and watching Marvin and Kyler work together, that there's sometimes quarterback receiver pairing is not always the best. That you get two guys that don't fit together well. Marvin Harrison, pure route runner, really great route runner at that. That's how you want to be using that guy. And you got Kyler Murray more of a guy that's going to fit best with, in my opinion, kind of more off-script guys that can kind of be improvisers at the receiver position at times. Yeah, Jake is pissed, Greg. He's on fire today a little bit. Calm Cal, that's crazy. Rams would even put their 5th round on a practice squad at least. I don't get it. You have any insights? Well, this isn't about that. This would be about you're putting him on your active roster. Seahawks are signing Chris Paul to the active roster, whereas the Rams want to get him on the practice squad. So as a practice squad player, if a team's out there willing to bring you onto an active roster, you're going to go to that rather than the practice squad. Slarty Bogarty, Tudo will get another concussion, and Kyler will go to Miami. I can see it. Josh, Texans O-line worse than the 2024 Seahawks. I think so as well. Thrallis, is Tank Dell back? No, as I understand it, he's still at the least going to miss a good amount of time this upcoming season. I haven't charted his current progress, but I remember hearing the offseason that they knew was going to take a little bit of time. It was a pretty bad injury that he had to deal with. Kind of a little bit all sort of like the Brandon Ayuk thing, where there's a couple things in there. AJ Justin available somewhere? He's out there somewhere. Alpha sucks at mock drafts. Texans picked up Arante Arise. I did like him. Is he not going to start left tackle over Cam Robinson? Robinson on the trade block for a while. Last I had checked, they still had the depth chart set up to where Robinson was going to start. And Arise was a guy there was some question with him coming out as to whether he was going to be left or right tackle. Let's take a look here where they're at. Yeah, so I'm right on this. So he's listed, he's their starting right tackle. But you got Cam Robinson starting left tackle for you, and then you have rookie. I liked Ariante Arce, by the way, but this was a guy that was raw and young and probably not ready necessarily to start day one and be good. You're going to probably get some up and down play from him as a youngster there. Excuse me. Jail says that's legit crazy eyes. He does have crazy eyes. Seth says, I did not know Nick Scorton was out for the year. Wow. Yeah, I want to make sure, let me make sure I'm right, but that's. So he's got, it's significant time. Maybe not the full year there, now that I look at it. But I thought I had read initially they were going to put him on the IR for a year. But maybe he's okay. He's got the collapsed lung. So maybe not full year on that one. Collapsed lung's never good, though. Steve, I'm not assuming that the Seahawks won't avoid injuries on that. I think that the Seattle Seahawks have done a better job than a lot of our division at making sure to reinforce their depth, which is part of why I attacked the front side of this with some of these teams on it, because they've gone very top heavy. I think, for instance, the Rams and the 49ers in particular in our division, Steve, are very top heavy. They lose one or two guys, and that kind of knocks out their whole ball of wax, so to speak. Versus, I think we can sustain an injury or two here or there, even to some important. You can lose an edge. You can lose a wide receiver. You can lose a cornerback. I think you can lose a safety. I think we can lose some things and we can still bounce back. So injuries are always the toughest of things to predict. If I'm going to predict in my outlook on some of these teams, maybe on where they're going to be injury-wise, it's looking at the track record of a player that's had a richer injury history. But injuries are going to be a part of it. It's hard to anticipate either or on that. More of the injuries I tried to get stuck on, if I did there, Steve, were ones that had actually happened, like talking about the Niners and what they were dealing with walking into this week with their injuries, or talking about a guy like Fatanu, who hasn't played a whole year coming off that knee injury and be playing his second professional game when he plays the Seattle Seahawks. And then I think those are worth noting in how that matchup bears out and giving you a little bit of it's not a big advantage, but it's tiny advantages as much as anything. These are kind of, I'd say, tiny advantages. They don't mean we're going to absolutely win, but it does mean to me, like I said at the top on this, Steve, I thought the schedule was easy at the front. I think the schedule's only gotten easier since the schedule's gotten released. Oh, week 10 was the Cardinals, Steve. So I didn't put him, I guess I did miss them on there, but that's the week 10 was the Cardinals. And the same notes fit to the prior that I said on those. But again, I know there's some pushback from your side of it. I know Cardinal fans have pushed back on this with it. I get it. We're in a little disagreement on this, and maybe you guys are proven right on this one. My outlook on the Cardinals was correct last year. I predicted the record exactly to what you guys landed out at, Steve. So my part of this is when you make these predictions and stuff, should be a little bit about what your track record was, especially when in regards to what that team has done in prior years. And my outlook on the Cardinals has been right on point here for the past couple of seasons. So that being the case, I'm not going to go into year 3 under Gannon having kind of predicted exactly where he's been the past 2 years and changing my deal up. And it's not to say the Cardinals are bad per se. They're in one of the toughest divisions in football. I still have them winning 6-7 games when it's all said and done. But again, I do think a little bit in their approach this offseason, Steven, has been, you had $100 million to spend. I think they went about it in a bit of a weird fashion. I don't think that they fixed the things that were weaknesses on their team. Like you say, they're sort of hoping for in-house development. And that's all good and well when you have something to base that on. Oh, the guy's shown us this enough to base that's going to be. But if it hasn't happened, you're kind of basing it on a blind guess a little bit at that point. Seth, yeah, we covered the Chris Paul. I went very exhaustively at the front on Chris Paul. So if you get a chance, just pop at the start of the show. That's one of our first bits of news we jump into. But super stoked on that one. What's up, Flag? How you doing, man? Bobo is my religion. NFC West discussion is so brain dead. Everyone ignores the Rams and red flags, rates them off 3 games from last year. The 49ers will have a top 5 pick. Their schedule is easy, yet they are still worse. Yeah, I mean, it's some of it's just where the Rams have been in the past couple of years. And, look, they've got 4 guys today that are getting taken off their active roster that they want to get on a practice squad. That certainly speaks to a bit of the depth that the Rams have across the board on their team and what they built. They've kind of earned the right the last couple of years of how good they've done, the playoff noise that they've made to be the guys that you have to kind of prove you can knock them off, a bit. But there's certainly a fall for all teams. For the Rams and the Niners, I can certainly see a couple of those key injuries hit them in the wrong spots, and they do not have the ability to sustain around it. It's all just coming down with those 2 teams in particular to me of how can the health hold up? If health holds up, well, they got a strong enough team that can still make noise. But if a couple of those injuries hit them wrong, I don't know. Eric, yeah, and Eric Winch, if you get a chance, check out the exhaustive thoughts on Chris Paul, but really good player. I liked him coming out of college as well. I think I had a 4th or 5th, I think I had a 4th round grade on him. He's played a lot of college ball at Ole Miss, 15th highest rated guy by PFF in college football last year from the inside linebacker position. Had a good PFF rated grades with the Rams. By all the accounts, the Rams fans, he was playing pretty well for them in the preseason. He's a guy that's a little undersized. A guy that's maybe a little bit shorter than you would like, but he's a baller. He's a full meal deal player, and that he can do all of the things you want from the position pretty well. And a guy by all accounts the Rams wanted to keep on the practice squad. You're getting this, Eric, as much as anything because the Rams seem to have a big blind spot when it comes to inside linebackers. This is how we got Ernest Jones last year, and look what Ernest Jones gave you. They just don't seem to think inside linebackers matter that much. I don't know what's exactly brought them to this hard line of an outlook of it, like the Rams have. But we get to take advantage of it maybe twice in 2 years now. They're kind of failing in this aspect of things. Josh says Cables has got to be careful though. Almost committed holding for no reason. Yeah, he got a little jumpy there on that one. Bubba's my religion. If the Hawks don't win by double digits against the Niners, something went horribly wrong. The Niners deserve no respect, no benefit of the doubt. The Hawks are simply of higher class. Losing is not an option. Well, it's going to be a tough game. I think the hard part about this is that you have the any given Sunday thing going on, and that it's a week 1 situation where you're not in a week 7, week 8 doldrums, teams kind of just getting through it, sore. You're going to get their best punch. And this is still a team that's being able to bring out guys that if McCaffrey's back to where he was before, that's tough. Trent Williams, Warner, Kittle. There's still some things here on this team that can give you some issues on it. But look, they're vulnerable. That's for sure, Bobo. They are vulnerable. Bubba's my legend. Stafford was legit really bad last year and is old, injury prone, and already getting chemicals pumped into him. Would be surprising if he had 15 touchdowns and 3,000 yards. Has he definitely had a little bit of age catching up to him a bit there, Bobo? Sure. The thing to keep in mind, though, last year is that offense got decimated. They lost offensive linemen. He had Puka Nacua out. He had Cooper Kupp out. I mean, he's throwing to Jordan, winning him and Demarcus Robinson as his 2 receivers. They just didn't have a lot there offensively for him to really work with once those receivers went down like they did. Not to mention you had Higbee out for most of the year. So it's like he's throwing to Colby Parkinson and Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell. I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to look a little bit reduced if those are the receivers they're throwing to. But I mean, by the time he got into the playoffs, man, he was slinging dots, But you're right. I mean, he's getting epidermal. It is a thing to worry about. AI, we stole that 5th round pick from the Rams. It's a good day when you steal a 5th round pick. Any pick from the Rams is a good day. Any day. Moose has just watched the NFL preview for the Hawks-Niners game. Man, they are really sleeping on the Hawks. I love it. Boy, they are indeed. What's up, Days Buds? A lot of sleeping on some Hawks. A lot of that going on right now. I'm with Big Chris. I like being an underdog too. I like that role. Abdi's Prime. John Schneider's cooking. Damn. Love the 53-man roster and waiver wire pickup. Funny thing is, I wanted us to draft Chris Paul Jr. Now full circle. After summer post-draft, we got him on the practice squad. It just feels like a steal, doesn't it? It feels like, is this allowed? Are we just allowed to do this? Or I just can put this in my bag? You're not even going to charge me? McVay, you're not going to charge me for this? I just get this? Okay. I'll take him. I mean, I'll definitely take him. Steve Haller, Hawks Nest, do you think we might have a mild case? You think you might have a mild case of cow allergies? Nah, I'm okay. Just a random sneeze. Maybe a cat hair went up in there. Got up in the nasal passage. Brian Myers, yep. Marquez Valdes-Scantling went to the San Francisco 49ers. Dwyer says desperate for a healthy wide receiver and for the Seahawks offensive playbook. That's right. Give us some tells here, Marquez. No, we'll get you on the field. Just can you tell us also about the playbook? No, we're going to get you some reps out there. 4 or 5. Yeah, just 4. Just tell us about the playbook here. Just get us back. What's the check? Come over here. Thomas says, you're right about Murray. I never once heard an OC tell Russ not to run. They have talent, but they are truly good. They're not truly good. Yeah, that's where I stand with it. 100%. Steve says, yeah, I have the same record prediction history too, but I have a totally different outlook this year. That's fair enough, and you might be proven right on it. I might be proven wrong. I mean, there's definitely a place here where Cardinals have improved twice the past couple of years. Is it logical and reasonable to say that you could see naturally just from that alone the improvement does continue, and that they do continue to get better? I can see that, and I can see that we're good. And honestly, it's big part of this for me, Steve, is going blow by blow through this offseason and looking at that roster and where they're at right now. Big part of this is the cornerback room, which Mike kind of glosses over, and I think some Cardinal fans kind of gloss over. You lost 2 cornerbacks to season-ending injuries. You got a really good slot cornerback, but that's what he does. He plays slot. He's not outside. So now in Will Johnson and Melton, you have 2 guys that are very much injury-prone now out there that you've got to roll for a whole season and hope that they can hold up. You can very much see where that's going to go sideways, where things are going to take a bad left turn on that really quickly. And there's not just answers to be had on the streets where you just bring up any old cornerback in there and they come in and they're playing fine. Like they're going to be struggling at that point. But it's all of that together. It's not just a Kyler thing or just that I don't have faith in it's the same old Cardinals as an outlook. That's not it at all. And like I said last night on the NFC West Roundtable, I think in general, this organization's moving in the right direction. I think Gannon's going to be the right coach for him. But I do think that they made some strange moves this offseason. I don't trust in Kyler Murray. I don't think that this offense is necessarily the best fit for Kyler Murray. And I think that all kind of comes to a head a little bit this season. But it can certainly go a different way too. I'm not saying I 100% know without a shadow of a doubt. Abdi Prime, Brandon, brother man, who do you think will be the 2 cuts from the 53-man roster to make room for Chaz Surratt, linebacker, and Rams Darian Kendrick, who will be the sacrifice for the practice squad? I would have to think you're going to look at trying to get Nick Caller up on there. That would be the one guy that I would think. D'Anthony Bell is another guy that I wonder as well, because you're keeping 5 safeties, and I think you're eventually going to want to go 4 safeties here. But that's also a hard one to predict because you're using Emawari out of the safety position, and so maybe you keep an extra safety then because of that. But I would definitely go with Caller up as being one of the guys that you would do this with. Hard to say on kind of the other one, I guess. Connor O'Toole. Let's go with Connor O'Toole. So we'll go Connor O'Toole and Nick Callerup would be the two that I'd move in order to add those guys on. Rainey, hey Brandon, I've seen the other day you were looking for a Jag content creator for Behind Enemy Lines. UCF Jaguar is with Roundtable or Jen. Jag is also good with Jordan DeLugo. He's a beat reporter. Okay, let me get the, thank you for the suggestion. And let me get the notes on this. Get the notes on here. Because you are right. I do need, thank you, Rainey, because I do need a Jaguar content creator. We've got everything lined up for the first couple of weeks right now. Jesse next week. I got a Steelers coming in, Steeler channel. We got Saints ones all locked in. Cardinals will be all good to go. But yeah, the next couple I need to get in on are going to be the, I got to find the Jacksonville one. So thank you for the note on that, as that gives me a little bit of a lead to go through there. If I can find that. I'll be right back. One sec, folks. AbbVie Prime, guys, I wanted us to draft Chris Paul for these past summer just for it to come back full circle for waiver wire to cut. Too funny. It's such a cool feeling. I mean, I like Chris, but I know, like you were talking about Prime, there's a lot of guys that in this drafting process, that fans and pundits alike, that really fell in love with the kid and really thought, man, this guy looks like a player. So it's got to be so rewarding when you're able to get that guy and almost get him for what feels like free, you know? Bryce Coots in the house. What's up, Bryce? It's good to see you, man. Please do sub up to Hawks Eye with Bryce Coots. We're going to be doing our Seahawks Syndicate initial kicking off thing tonight. Hope you guys are ready for that. Yeah, Steve Haller, you're going to have to sell me on Isaiah Adams. I scouted that kid quite a bit coming out of college, and I think that's going to be I think we're going to come to find with the Cardinals that's a missed pick on that one, but we'll see with him. Well, first things first, had Seattle Seahawks last. It's where it is, man. It's weird to watch so many. Somebody mentioned it on Twitter. It's like, when were the last time the Seahawks were actually in last place? And we're coming off of 3 straight winning seasons. We're taking a step like hugely back this year. I can get if you say, well, you lose Geno to Sam, you take a little step back, but the way it gets kind of put together by some out there is somehow we take this big monstrous step back this year in year 2 under McDonald, with all of your defensive starters returning, every single one of them. Kind of weird, but people just don't have a good outlook or an understanding of where Seattle's really at, in my opinion, either. Thomas, I respect the Niners. We need to understand this could be a repeat of the Rams and Seahawks a couple of years ago. Seattle should handle the Niners. Problem is, Seattle was 3-6 playing at home. Yeah, that's where I go. There's no guarantee you're taking out the Niners. And that's why I said, even in my initial deal of looking at the schedule through at the start of the show here today, that I had that as a war. It's going to be a war. You're going to get their best, hardest punch. You're going to get them swinging as hard as they're going to swing at any game this year. They want to start this year off right. They know that the Super Bowl window is almost shut. They've got to get this thing rolling. They're off of a last place year last year. There will be a sense of urgency from this 49er team in this upcoming game, even if they are a little bit injured. It's not just going to be a cakewalk for us. Kieran says, I don't mind being an underdog. That's fine. How's that any different for us? I just hate the complete lack of respect. Yeah. I mean, for you, it's a maybe lack of respect. I tend to look at it, Kieran, from the standpoint of, I just don't think these people do a very particularly good job of trying to look very intricately at these teams, especially these teams like us, A Cardinal team would be like that. One of these teams out on the West or Midwest that just kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Oh yeah, Seattle's got a team out there. Oh yeah. I just think it's the laziness on it more than it is they've actually looked at our team, made an assessment, and then said, yeah, that's a last place squad, or that's they got 5-6 wins. I think that's what it really comes down to more than the respect thing is and maybe that is respect in the end of the day. Like you should respect us at least to take the time to do the homework to see where we really stand rather than just glossing over it like it's obvious that they do. Kyle from South Park in the house. What's up, Kyle? Good to see you, brother. Says Jake doesn't realize Ford, Jimmy G, and A. Witherspoon have played on other NFC West teams before. I think we'd know what the player can and can't do. Yeah, it is funny as he's trying to sell this on us, and it's so nice to have Jesse in there at those times where I can just look at Jesse as he starts trying to talk about Jimmy, and it's like, dude, give me a break. Jimmy Garoppolo, really? You're going to go that far with it? And on Witherspoon, look, Witherspoon can cover, but the thing that Jake just will not think about with this that he's not putting 2 and 2 together is you have Akeelia Witherspoon on this side, and then you have the Slim Reaper over here, Emmanuel Forbes, who weighs 155 freaking pounds soaking wet. Both of those two guys are not minor liabilities. They are major liabilities when it comes to tackling. And what are we running now? What's the running game system we're currently operating from? The wide zone. What does the wide zone do to outside cornerbacks who can't tackle? Ask Reek Woolen what the Niners have done to him over the past couple of years in targeting him as a tackler. Ask him what they're able to do with their formations and with their stuff to set you up in that way. Because they'll bring down their receiver, they'll pin the block on the defensive end, they'll bring him in motion and just boop, pin that defensive end. You'll leave that cornerback unblocked, you'll block everybody else, and you'll leave your one-on-one matchup for your running back against that cornerback. And if you have not just one, but 2 outside guys that don't tackle particularly well, in addition to a front 7 that's got vulnerabilities, it's not really setting the stage too well there to allow them to take off. And then the Poona Ford thing is just, I couldn't get through to Jake last night on it. I was trying to explain it to him, and it was like, I can't believe that you're debating me on this. This isn't a debatable thing. Poona Ford, like Jaron Reed, Seahawks did the same thing with Poona that they did with Jaron Reed. We bring you in, you're a nose tackle. You're a really good nose tackle. We like what you do as a nose tackle. But you know what? We think you might even be better as a 3-tech. So we're moving you over to 3-tech. And then reasonably effective as a 3-tech. But once you make that transition away from 3-tech, you don't really go back to the 1. And so Poona has been a 3. Chargers last year, 3. Tierra Tart is your nose tackle. He's doing what he's doing from a 3-tech role. And so the Rams have stocked a bunch of 3-techs on this roster. But where's the beef? Where's the 330-pound nose tackle that can take up 2 blockers, that can keep your linebackers able to run free in space? I don't think they've got it. And I think Poona's a good player. I think he'll help them, but he's going to help them as run-stuffing 3-tech, as a pass-rushing 3-tech. He's not going to help them as a nose tackle. And then Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner, you already had 3-techs. 2 of them, 2 really good ones. And there's only so many snaps to go to 1 3-tech, unless you're going to go with 2 3-techs on the field. Maybe that's what they're going to try to do. Good luck with that. Good luck with that if that's your approach. I think we could take advantage of that. But yeah, Jake is very high on a couple of those guys that he gets high. I think he gets caught up on things they do good and forgets about the limitations of what they have on the other side of it, which is the very reason that they're not on those, as you mentioned, Kyle, other NFC teams anymore. You know? Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez in the house. What's up, Jose? One of our main mods on in the house here. If you can for me, please do get subbed up to Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. As I'd love to keep seeing him just click in place and lock it in over there as he's making some great progress. Thank you for 6 months, Jose, as a member. It says, B, the 49ers just put another wide receiver on the IR. Who's going now? I'm looking for the update on it here. Was it Juwan, Jose? Or maybe it was Jordan Watkins. Still not practicing is Juwan Jennings. I think you mean Jordan Watkins, though. Yeah, they're in dicey shape. I don't know if I've seen a team starting into the season this thinned out at one positional group like the Niners are. And it's tough, man. They've got some things set up to the Niners here, though. This is going to be, I think they're lucky that schedule's so easy because the vibes are not right. It is just not right at where it stands right now. The fan base is a little bit unsure. Injuries at the wrong spots. You're starting like 3 rookies on that defensive line. At least they're going to get starter snaps when it's all said and done there, Jose. But it's not coming up Google-wise. It looks like maybe it was Watkins. So I'll go with him unless I see something else new come up on the ticker there, Jose. Looks like we got Sa'atoa Lamea and Tyron Bowden are on the practice squad. 2 more additions there. So let me get this up here for you guys. All right. Tyrone Broden and so here is your current practice squad list as I've got it confirmed so far. We will keep you guys updated on this here as it goes along, but there it be. Champy, go Cards go. What's up, Champy? Thanks for hopping in the channel today. Always good to see folks from the division within. Hope you're doing well. C.D. Woods, Chris Paul Jr., and Jay Higgins were my favorite linebackers out of the draft. Glad we got one of them. Me too, man. I think that the CD, I believe that the Paul thing is he's on the active roster. I don't think he's on the practice squad. Seth says, Brandon, it's my sister's birthday. Can you shout out Candace? Candace, have a happy birthday. Know that you got a great brother out there in Seth, but you're going to have an awesome birthday, Candace. And a lot of cake, little drink, a lot of fun. Happy birthday. Catalyst, I really like Garrett Williams, though. Great nickel cornerback. Absolutely. I've got no shade I'd throw at Garrett Williams. He's legitimate. He is legitimate, one of the better nickel cornerbacks in this sport. A full meal deal as a player and what he gives you. So I would nod with him. He's legit. He's steady as she goes out there. He's their rock in that secondary outside of Budda Baker. Thomas says, the team I don't understand what they're doing is the Bengals. What is their vision? They can't just rely on Burrow. I think they're just trying to run the band back together when it was all said and done this year, and that they punt the tough decisions on to next year a little bit. But I've got to give them some credit in that this thing looked like it was going to go into a complete mess zone with Hendrickson gone and Shamar Stewart going back to college maybe, and you were able to get those other 2 guys on to at least help reinforce the defense some. But it's a team that I don't know has a plan, and their financial limitations just always seem to come back and bite them somehow or another. Brady says, obviously not a Cards fan, but 6 wins for the Cards is disrespectful, laughing out loud. I like it, though. I'm going hard on it. I'll give you guys that. It's a bold take on my part. I think it's much easier with a Cardinal team with what they've done last year and where they've gone the past 2 years to kind of take the easy and safe road on this and go 8 wins, 9 wins. I also think that's boring. And I also think that's the easy way out. And I feel like with the Cardinals this year, it's kind of an S or get off the pot situation this year. And I don't know if I feel them as being as much middle of the road-ish as maybe they've been the past, as they were last year. And it's a bold one on my part. I'll give you that. It's a one that I'm at 6 wins. I'm going to be wildly different, I think, than most other pundits out there, most other content creators out there in their outlook of the Cardinals, including the NFC West roundtable you saw last night. But it's just a suspicion, a sneaking suspicion I have, Rainey. Justin Bright, love the Chris Paul Jr. signing, man. It's a great signing. I don't think you're going to find one Hawk fan who's out on that one. It was Jacob Cowling. Okay, that was the one that Jose was talking about. So Jacob Cowling goes on IR. Not a surprise there. He had the hamstring injury, and that's kind of what was expected. Justin says, at least we got a better linebacker depth. A lot of Rams fans are hurt he's gone. Oh, they are, Justin. Yeah, they're not happy about it. And this guy does give you good depth for the position. You've improved your team, I think, by bringing in Chris Paul today. Hey, Donnie, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Sentai. Misfit, I can't wait for the next NFC West roundtable. I know, I'm going to have fun with that one. I'm giving Jake might cry.
Enough said.
Oh, jeez. SE Koken says, haven't been following the practice squad signings. Who did we sign besides Ricky White and Damian Martinez? So currently the list is Jamie Sheriff, Courtney Jackson, you got from the Broncos, kind of going to be maybe a backup returner kind of guy. Ricky White, Jarek Reed, Federico Maranges, Damian Martinez, Jarcadia Wright, Tyron Broden, and Sa'atoa Lamea. Those are your current practice squad guys that we've had released. Misfit says Jake's nickname is Homer henceforth. I know you said henceforth, but that actually kind of goes together. Homer henceforth. He does a good job covering his team, though. I love Jake, man, and he's awesome. It is going to be fun next week. Twisting the knife a little bit on the Chris Paul side. He's like friends with his dad and everything. Like, I can't help myself. Stimpy in the house. What's up, Stimpy? Celebrating, I said not a 1, but a 2. A 2 years as a Hawks Nest member. Let's go. Thank you for that long time support, Stimpy. He says 2 years. That's a good amount of time, man. Thank you for that long time help for the channel and all of what you do for it. Says thanks for everything you do, B. The news, the games, the laughs, the good memories. You're the GOAT. Can't wait for the season. Go Hawks. Well, that is very kind of you to say, Stimpy. You're the GOAT, man, for being a member for multiple years here on this channel, showing the love in that way. I really thank you for doing it. I love what I get to do, man. Getting to chop this up with you guys every day and turn this stuff over and have the news coming down the line and we're all kind of seeing it at once. This is great. We're into the season. I'm just, as I say, like a pig in mud. I'm so happy doing this. And so thank you, man. I appreciate you. And thank you again, too, for all that support, brother. It's going to be a hell of a year, I think. It's going to be a hell of a year. Kieran's McKay says Peely got hurt. Ooh, that's tough. Yeah, Rainey, we don't have Bahana or Peely as of yet. So they're just kind of still riding with what they got. But it sounds like maybe he's injured. Josh says they did sign Bahana to the practice squad. All right, let me add him on then, if that's the case. Bahana. We got at least defense tackle on there. Stephen Haller and Jalen Thompson should have a bounce back year. He was playing injured all season. Also, Rabbit is a future star. I think Jalen Thompson's solid. Yeah, that's a solid safety tandem you got back there, I'd say, for sure. I could see that. I can see going that way. It's more the outside corners than it is the safeties of the slot for me. And just in that, I think it's going to get a little lean there for you guys as we go through the year. You know, not from where we're starting out to where we're at by like week 6 or 7. I think one of those two guys maybe potentially isn't running then, and your guys are scrambling a little bit there. But safeties are good. And I love me some Buda Baker. Misfit, I'm glad to see investment in our offensive line in the future by keeping Cable Dew and Richmond. Me too. It's definitely what we're looking for, I think, long-term with this offensive line is let's slowly, bit by bit, try to get this as close as we can to turning this into a strength from what has been a glaring weakness for years. Steve, I'm going to be honest. I think it's based on annoyance that some of the national media has the Cards above the Hawks. Not a position I agree with. Yeah, I think that they're liking what Gannon's done down there too, and the fact that you have the back-to-back years where essentially you can see actual tangible improvement in both of the 2 seasons, both win and loss record, and the general feel from the team itself. I think that they just like what they're doing down there in general terms in that way. And I'll say this with the Cardinals, though I didn't love their offseason on this, Stephen. I will say I didn't think that they made any real fatal mistake for the future. It was more of maybe just at the heart of it a bit of. I would have thought that they would have kind of hit the injection button and said let's this is the year we got $100 million, let's let this thing roll and go. And it was a little bit more of the patient, let's be a little conservative in our approach. Sweat money's big money, that's good there, but that's your big hallmark signing essentially on the back. And I know they did some extensions here too, the Trey McBride extension and whatnot. But yeah, outlook on the Hawks is a bit strange, but it's also too, I think, Stephen, the lack of the buy-in on Sam Darnold. I think they just look at Sam, and especially the recency bias of Sam in the last game there in the playoffs against the Rams, looking overwhelmed. I think that just kind of sits in people's imagination and they can't shake it free. Thomas, I love stealing linebackers from both NFC West rivals. Me too. Jazz Surratt. So we got another linebacker too that we grabbed from the Niners here. Thomas Brando, I watched part of the Dallas Cowboys on Netflix. He got so lucky, and it's definitely a BJ Jerry Jones likes. Yeah, Jerry definitely, thankfully for him, Jimmy Johnson and him went to college together. Thankfully for him, I mean, that's the smartest thing he did was grabbing Jimmy Johnson. But, and it's a little bit of my issue with the documentary, in my opinion, is that there's not enough credit kind of given to Jimmy Johnson as much as it should be. It's every time they start to try to give Jimmy some credit, it's like coming back to Jerry, like, but I was the man in the room. I was the man making the calls, though. I was the general manager. It was me, right? It's like, but everything we know about this, as it was reported by many reporters, is that, Jimmy Johnson was the man making it happen. And ego just comes back to me too, watching that documentary, and that there have been so many great teams in NFL history that do not get taken down by age, that do not get taken down by injury, do not get taken down by just losing so many free agents you can't overcome it, but that there are so many really great teams in NFL history that have been taken down by ego. And oftentimes it's player ego. For instance, I think the 85 Bears, why they only have one Super Bowl championship, why they didn't have multiple, came down to ego. I get credit. No, I get credit. No, I'm the reason. No, I'm the reason. Do I get a commercial? I want a commercial. When do I get to get my advertisement? I'm the star on this thing. Shouldn't I be given that? I'm really the guy that this should be talking about. No, it's about me here. No, it's about me right there, here. You got a guy like Walter Payton at the end of that game in the Super Bowl that you've just pasted the Patriots in, mad because he didn't get a touchdown, a rushing touchdown in the game. Ego. Our own Seahawks, Legion of Boom. What killed the Legion of Boom, in my opinion? Yeah, injuries hurt. But I would say that it was more about the ego stuff that popped up and took over. I get credit. No, I get credit. No, I'm the reason. No, I'm the reason. And Cowboys the same way. Jimmy Johnson couldn't make his peace with the fact that, he wasn't getting enough of the credit, essentially, and wanted to kind of steer that off of Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson wanted to, run things the way he wanted to run it. And it's two egos clash and can't come to a common ground. Can't just say, hey, we're building something special here. Can't we look past our ego and understand we're doing something here that's so unique and so hard to do in this sport, and we should hold on to it with a death grip and cherish it? And it is the toughest thing in sports. You got this whole process of building a team and to get to the mountaintop, and it took everything to get there, and a Herschel Walker trade and developing young talent and making the right picks and spending the right money. And then it all gets taken out by egos clashing. It self-sabotages itself in so many ways. Kieran says, I'll be bold. Kyler's playing his last year as a starter in the NFL. Ooh, let's go. Let's go.
Enough said.
Catalyst says, someone on Jake's stream said, Seattle's trying to be us, and I'm sick of it. Yeah, you got good players. that we like, laughing out loud. Yeah, exactly. Like, this ain't Chris Paul. Like, it's just because he's a Ram that we're grabbing him. This is a guy that a lot of people loved coming out of the draft and that you probably should have kept. And most Rams fans right now are twisting and turning in turmoil because they know that they should have kept him and they got cute with it. They got cute. No word on Jonathan Hankins. Still waiting on that O'Dwyer. Mike has been a little nebulous with it. They're going to try to get him back, maybe practicing next week, but it's still a little bit of a question there. HHGB, see any nose tackles we can come across? I didn't see any that were out there on the open market. It was kind of as I suspected, being that nose tackle is a little bit of a low-key, scarce position right now in the NFL. It's hard to find functional ones. And there just wasn't anything out there on the open market. Yeah. Nose tag. Okay, so we got a couple other signings here, it looks like. Get these on here. So we got J.R. Singleton, Anthony Campbell, Patrick O'Connell, Jalen Gaines, Shamar, John Jones, and we got Jarek Reed on there. So there's my update. Got the updated list here on the practice squad. Thank you for the update, Abdi. It sounds like Peely's a little hurt, so that's why he's not on there. Steve says, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little worried about depth with Starling and SMB going down. One, we could withstand. That's it. You're touching on, Steve, where my issue comes with it on it. Where like one of them you could have withstood, and then it's not the worst to lose two, but when the two starters that you're now raising up to start do themselves also have the injury history, when we know in a Will Johnson that how many NFL teams passed on him and passed on him twice because they were so worried about that knee being a ticking time bomb, maybe it's not. Maybe the Cardinals are going to be so brilliant on this one that that'll turn out to be one of the steals of the draft. Because I'll say this, Steve, I thought that the kid had true blue chip talent to him. And I only give out about 6 or 7 of those grades every draft. So Johnson's talent is absolutely true, but it's just, I start to put that a little bit of that together, like you say, where you're a little worried. I'd be a little worried too on that, where I'm like, this goes one more deep. We don't have necessarily a rightful answer to go out there and have the same kind of functional play we would have otherwise, because Max Melton is very talented and there's some ability there if he can tap into that talent. Johnson is the same way. They give you that upside of hope there that does exist and is true. But then the injury side of it is just kind of sitting there a little bit precarious for me with them on that. And that's like, let's just relate that back to like our cornerback room right now, Steve. You know, we got Reek Woolen, healthy as a horse. Starter, was your starter this offseason. He's good to go. Devin Witherspoon, healthy as a horse. Was going to be your starter. He is your starter right now. You've brought in Shaquille Griffin, who's a steady guy that's been played everywhere, and he gives you pretty solid play if he's got to be out there as a depth piece. Now, Maya Pritchett, who came forward in the preseason for us and is at least given us maybe some ability. The guy's actually started a game for you last year and played a good amount of snaps last year, so he seems to be coming along. You know, we're not sitting there, you know, kind of in that same place. We don't have any real positional group that's sitting in that kind of same spot of things like the Cardinals are with it. And it's not a normal thing across the board for a lot of NFL teams, like with their cornerback. I think the Niners are in the same boat, Steve, when it comes to the running back room, when it comes to their wide receiver room. They're even in worse shape than you guys are with the corners. So it does just hit. You just sometimes do get snake bitten this way as a franchise at the wrong time of year. And you never know when it's going to be your number on that. But that part of it with the Cardinals isn't anything to do with them not properly building their roster. That's just purely bad luck. I mean, even Steven, I think you guys even lost the kid you took at the end of the draft to IR. The undrafted rookie, another undrafted rookie guy that got knocked out too at the corner position. Misfit is still 580 for the Seahawks to win the NFC West. I think so. That sounds right. CD Woods, Cards are the fun sleeper team over the past few years. Kyler's a former number 1 pick that everyone can say when he puts it together, even though that never happens. Good point. Very good point. So Peely has an undisclosed injury. We'll see what they do with him on that. Steve, they could withstand one going down, but it gets a little too thin after 2 vets go down. They're super young at cornerback. Exactly. And we haven't gotten even to week 1 yet. We haven't gotten to the long season. We're not into sort of, Steve, the week 7, this is occurring to you. And so now you can kind of tread water through the last 11 weeks of the season. And if everything breaks just decently right you can get through, where it's like, no, from the jump, this is the pickle you find yourself in, where those other two cornerbacks aren't coming back. Those guys are just lost and gone. And as you say, you're relying on now young guys, and young guys both, who themselves have had an injury history to them. How many games did Max Melton miss so far here in his career? Well, I guess he played 17. He played 17 games last year technically, but only started 3. So I know that there were some injuries he was fighting through last year too, but he's talented. I'll say this, he's a good player if he can tap into it. Joshua Starboard says Jake reaching out over Willie Lampkin is priceless. Freaking out. Yeah, he's not happy about the Lampkin one. I like Lampkin too, man. He's fun and he looked awesome in preseason. I get his head, I can kind of know where he's coming from on this. I'd be a little bit frustrated by that too. I wanted us to take Lampkin. Yeah, Misfit Singleton does deserve some love. 2 tackle for loss in the game. He had a forced fumble in the backfield as well. He played really well. Certainly did enough to earn that practice squad spot, that's for sure. LeBon B, should the Hawks sign Laviska Shenault to the practice squad for return purposes? No, I think that's why they've gone with Courtney Jackson. You brought Laviska in, you gave him $1 million guaranteed last year to give you a real skill set that he was unable to give you. And it just didn't work out for them in that way. They ended up cutting him last year, almost just after D. Williams. So I think they weren't impressed with what they saw of him. Alpha Sucks in mock draft. Shaq Griffin cut to make room for Darian Kendrick. Is that how they're doing it? Wow. Okay. Steve Haller says, I'll be bold. This will be Kyler's best season of his career. I'm not really a huge Kyler believer, though. I love it, Steve. Let's go. Karen says, speaking of Jerry, dude was almost hospitalized by a player throwing a helmet through a wall, just missing his face. Over what? Not signing your best player when he should have, and players were pissed. Yeah, Jerry's been playing this game for a very long time with the contract situation and playing those games, and he's under contract. He's a Cowboy, he's under contract, he's going to come and play. I don't care what he wants. I don't care if we lose. But, the thing that's also true about that with Jerry on the Emmett situation is, how did that end up playing out? What did your hardline stance get you, Jera? You ended up making Emmitt Smith the highest paid running back in the sport. Big win, buddy. Great job, buddy. You really got over on Emmitt on that one. And this is where with Jerry, you just go, dude, this doesn't benefit you at any point. This hasn't benefited you at any point. Why do you keep doing this? Because it gets us in the media. So you're talking about Cowboys. Just talk about the Cowboys. That was the part that you did feel from the documentary that you absolutely understood about these Micah negotiations, is that, as I've said before, Jerry is one of those people that ascribe to the fact that there is no such thing as bad press, that any press is good press. Anytime they're talking about you, it's a good thing. I would push that that's not the way it is, and that what this has all led to is it's not led to the Dallas being a destination location for players like it maybe once was. It's led to players saying that's one of the spots that I will avoid if I can help it. Is that the environment you want to create, Jerry? Is that worth it? Is the price worth of it, doing business on that, to what you have? And players don't want to come there, but everybody's talking about you. Wouldn't be worth a lot to me. Dan Lowe Music coming in late. Did we sign Chris Paul to the active roster or the practice squad? Either way, who did we cut? Still getting some news right now down low on who exactly got cut. I'm hearing some different things on this one, so we'll have to wait on that one just a little bit. But as I understand it, Chris Paul was actually signed to the active roster and not the practice squad. This is a little bit of a fluid situation. It's because the news is just kind of coming down the line on this, but I thought that he's on the actual active 53. Josh, though, is also saying he heard Chris Paul went to the practice squad. So hard to say at this point. Give it another 24 hours period to figure out exactly where he stands, if it's active roster, or if it's practice. Great, Iser. Hawks Nest, thank you so much for posting the Hawks practice squad and who the Seahawks signed from other teams. Love it. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Get a couple others listed on there that we signed. Put a couple of the guys we signed here, I think are active rosters, but we'll see on that. To be determined, TBD. My pleasure, though, Grandizer. Kyle, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate your support today, brother. It says, Roundtable should explain what 8 losses Seattle will have. I probably should have pushed back on that one yesterday on trying to figure out where they see those losses on the schedule exactly and how we're losing to who, where on that. That would have been a good question on my part to ask with it. I think in all those guys' cases, even when they do say that they think Seattle's here, and look, Jake had us at 11 wins like where I had it. So Jake does have us, doing well, being in second place. And it was more the Cardinals, Mike kind of going, I got him here at the 8 losses being Seattle. But even in Jesse's case, Jesse was totally acknowledging the fact that he doesn't feel like he's got a real full pulse on the Seahawks team. That he acknowledges the potential and the talent that's there, but he just doesn't have a good feel really for where they're at, and that there's certainly the potential for them to go out there and make a lot of noise this year. So even on the guys in the roundtable that were a little bit on the lighter side, they were themselves, I think, even still going, yeah, but I don't feel ultimately super confident in this outlook of things. And I think certainly Mike, when he looks to the Cardinal roster right now, what's going on with the Cardinals, he's optimistic, but I think he's also a little bit realistic about if this doesn't go great this year, it's not a complete surprise either. Abdi Prime, yes, Peely made the roster. Let's go, Brandon. So we got Peely on the roster now. So this is the tough part because I hear from the chat, we got some saying that he was injured and that's why he's not, but then others are saying, no, he's on the squad. So hard to say on this one. Let's give it a little 24 hours. I know there'll be a draw here to try to get the exact this and exact that to that. We got to give it a little bit more time for some of this stuff to shake out so we got the accuracy of the situation and what's going on. Dogzilla, how do salaries, contracts work on the practice squad? You have a certain set couple of $1 million that then goes to the practice squad guys, Dogzilla. And because it's gone to 16 guys, that's a little bit more of a chunk than it used to be when you had 6 to 8 guys in your practice squad. So that part has gone up a little bit more where you have to have more of a reserve fund for those practice squad guys because they don't make a lot, but when you've got 16 of them making $500,000, it can get a little bit, not pricey, but it's a chunk. It's a chunk. Abdi, also Shaq Griffin got cut. Guys, damn, to make room for the new cornerback, Darian Kendrick. Just maybe didn't like what they saw in Shaq. He missed a lot of training camp for them, with the issue he was dealing with off the field. Just maybe they weren't as sold in what they saw from him. It sounded like he was playing pretty decent in the Packer practice the other day. He did get kind of picked on in the Packer game, though. I'll say that. Gave up a couple of completions. Gave up a touchdown. Catalyst Corey Jackson is a good returner. According to what I was reading at before I went live, he averaged 14 yards per return in college. It's pretty good. Drillhouse Lavishka dropped the return ball, and he was bye-bye. Yeah. When we're paying you $1 million to do that, you better do that job right. When we're paying you for this small little job that you're only going to come on the field to do a couple of times a game, you got to do it well. Or you at least got to not mess it up. He messed it up. Yeah, Griffin Goins is an odd one. Darian Kendrick hasn't done a lot for the position to make you think that you'd have the confidence to do this, but just maybe didn't see enough in Griffin. I think Alpha Sucks and Mox may be onto something with Griffin too, where he's a vet. So if you have Griffin on the roster after week 1, his whole salary becomes fully guaranteed for the whole season. If you wait to bring Griffin back after week 1, now his whole salary is not guaranteed. And you can go kind of week by week with the player. So maybe the Griffin thing is a little bit of that, but you'd have to think there'd be probably a team out there looking to pick him up for their active roster week 1. Oh, Dwyer, I still have PTSD from the special teams nightmare against the Jets. That was awful. That was a horrible game. And we're lucky to not have lost that game off the back of the mistakes those guys were making, to your point. That was a tough one. Dan Lowe, I know nothing about Kendricks. Hope he's an upgrade. I mean, on the surface of it, later round guy, hasn't done a lot in this sport. Griffin has done more in accomplishment than Darian Kendrick has. But the team just must have an affinity for the guy. Rainey says, imagine if someone signed the long snapper, the cards cut, or the punter, the Rams cut. What a gamble that kind of stuff is right before the season. You're playing with fire, man. Could get burned. Yeah. And teams trying to get funky on this roster stuff. And in the Rams case, hell, they've lost 4 guys as it is. So they were doing everything they could to kind of scramble to retain who they could retain. Thomas says, Jerry's ego got bigger because they won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. Problem is they got lucky winning the Herschel Walker trade. Jimmy Johnson was the reason why they won those Super Bowls. Agreed all the way around. I mean, Jimmy made that happen. And it was Jimmy's foresight, everything he brought as a coach. Jimmy Johnson's an all-time great coach because he didn't just do one thing here, one thing there great. He was a great talent evaluator, a great developer of talent, brought on the right kind of coordinators to run the scheme correctly. He was the guy that made that happen. And Jimmy Johnson really was just, in my opinion, at the end of the day, Jimmy did his share of things to help raise the brand and all that. And he's got his things he does well. But when it comes to just the meat and potatoes of the football operation itself, and that being a successful part of it, that was not Jimmy Johnson. Or that was Jimmy Johnson, not Jerry Jones. Joss says, Kendrick is hit or miss. Got a bunch of PBUs, but also committed a bunch of penalties. Okay. Michael Z, Brandon Peely is on the practice squad. All right, I'm going to put him on there if you say so. We'll stick him on there for now here and see how it goes. McKeon Silver, is Chris Paul on the active roster practice squad? Did Griffin get cut? Is Peely on the practice squad? So, as I understand it, Chris Paul's on the active roster. Might be a fluid situation on this, but I understand it to be that and how that was initially reported when he was signed. Griffin did get cut in lieu of Darian Kendrick, the other Ram that you picked up on waivers. And according to what I'm being told in the chat here, Brandon Peely is on the practice squad, but I've heard a couple of chatters also say not on the practice squad and on the active roster. So it's a little bit of a all around a little bit here. Abdi, Brandon, brother Michael Degar just tweeted who made the practice squad, and they chose the one to sacrifice for Kendrick. It was Shaquille Griffin, shaking my head. Maybe after week 1 thing there on that one. That's kind of a bit of an oddity, isn't it? Rockman Drum, Shaq's the victim. He's a newbie, so makes sense. Well, to this version of the team. Yeah. Just didn't like what they saw, I guess. Alpha Zex and Mox, Chris Paul transaction hasn't gone through with the league yet. It will tomorrow, which is why he's not listed on the PS. Okay, makes sense. Mungles, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, Shaq Griffin released? Bring him back after San Francisco? Yeah, that's what I think possibly could be a play here, and this does make sense. The other corners you would have had on the roster, including Darian Kendrick, wouldn't have been, I mean, you're bringing on a younger, cheaper guy there. But it's that week 1 thing that they have on that CBA, where if you're a veteran and you're on the active roster after week 1, your whole base salary becomes guaranteed for the year. But if you're not on and the team picks you up on Tuesday after week 1, and now you're back on the roster and that's when you grab them, now you can week by week it with that player. So that if they get injured in week 7, you're not on the hook for all of the remaining portion of their base salary through the year. It's kind of a small thing, but it's something that can save you a couple of $1 million over the course of the season if you're managing it like it would seem John Schneider's managing it. It could be, too, that they just don't like what they saw from Griffin. Could be that as well. It's hard to kind of say on that because we just didn't have a lot of them at training camp and we didn't have much of it in the preseason games. Kyle says the NFL should expand the 53-man roster. It's embarrassing that we still have 53, but 16 practice squad players. Just make it 70 on the official roster and call it a day. Amen, Kyle. The reason that it's not done this way is because the NFL doesn't want to give up more of the slice of the pie of profits than they already are. And if you expand rosters, then you're going to have to expand how much money you're giving to the players. And they don't like to give the players more percentage points back as far as the profit margins go and giving them more back returns unless they're getting something back in return because everything's a negotiation in those CBA deals. So I agree with you. I do, but I think the NFL's probably dug in on this one is trying to save a dollar wherever they possibly can. Josh Kendrick got torched by DK a few times, so there's an opportunity for improvement. Rainey, Shaq releases a mistake. IMO dude missed all of camp and come back and had a really good practice. It's a bit of an oddity one, man. I don't have a lot of explanation on this one either, outside of a couple of those other prior things mentioned. I'm not sure on this one. I do think somebody will probably pick him up too, Rainey. Yeah. Agreed. Zach says, do you think Holani could see some playtime with Sharps if K9 goes down, or is it just strictly for special teams? No, I think he's, Zach, your third running back off the board here as far as if something happens to those first two guys, he's going to be out there. If something happens to the first guy, he's going to get carries backing up Charbonnet as the number two. You know, you're going to run with a lot of Charbonnet at that point, but yeah, he is in alignment, not just to be a special teams guy, but to be a guy that will absolutely get touches and carries here throughout the course of the season. You know, even the natural flow of things. I think he earned it, Zach. I think he did enough on that to really earn that job and be given that, you know, kind of with McIntosh down, you know, you've earned your rightful spot on this to be the third guy in that rotation. Danlo says, so Broden will be 2.0 of always making a roster and doing nothing. I don't have a lot of hope in him in the long-term future. I'll say that. You know, him and Milrose seem to have a pretty cool connection. So maybe the team was just like, you guys are so much in this weird lockstep thing from day one. We're going to hold him onto the roster for that reason alone. He's really fast. He's really big. So maybe you can develop those skills long-term. Addicted Brandon, I'm kind of interested in Broden making the 53-man roster whenever he has a Derek Young 2.0 career. Well, I was under the understanding Tyrone Broden is just on the practice squad. So I don't think he's getting onto the active roster anytime soon, would be my guess. We saw with him in the Chiefs game where he allowed Sky Moore to bust off the touchdown on the punt return. He's not a special teams guy either, really. So I think this is more of a development receiver you stick on the practice squad and roll with them there. Chris, can teams sign a player from another team's practice squad at any time? How does it work from this point forward? Yes, you can sign a practice squad player at any point in time going forward. You have to bring them onto your active roster. So you can't sign a practice squad guy and then put him onto your practice squad. Some teams get a little bit kinky with this where they'll bring a guy on, active roster him, and then after week one, they release him and then they put him on the practice squad. So there's some workarounds to make this still go, but in general terms, you got to put him on the active roster if you're going to pick up a guy like this. It is a little bit of an open-ended one, though, here where it might be Chris going to the practice squad this time because normally when this stuff happens, it's week 3. We're plucking the practice squad guy here. I got to put him in the active roster because it's right now before the start of the season. And you got everybody kind of filling out their practice squads. It might be they're able to kind of throw him to the practice squad now versus if it had been regular season, it would have gone to active roster. But that's the part where let's wait until we get to the full tomorrow, and then we'll see where he's exactly landing at. Kind of would have thought Chris Paul would have just stayed with the Rams if the intention was just to keep him on the practice squad. Tezugaku, what happened to the Kobe Bryant cornerback that got released? Should still be out there. Looks like he's still out there, according to what I'm seeing. Check your XP. Oh, there we go, Jose. Thank you, man. Appreciate that, Jose. Sending me the updated practice squad. All right, so let's go here. Got Bowden, Pili Lamea, Mari Knight, Jared Reed, Tyus, Anthony Tyus, huh? Okay. Jarky, all right. Patrick O'Connell, got that one. Jalen Gaines, I got that one. Okay. Thank you there, Jose, my guy, for sending that to me on X. So current practice squad here is, we'll start to get close to putting a button on the show here today. We got Jamie Sheriff, Courtney Jackson, Ricky White, Jerick Reed, Frederico Maranges, Damian Martinez, Jarcadia Wright, Tyrone Broden, Saato Alamea, Brandon Peely, Amari Knight, Quinn Bohanna, J.R. Singleton, Anthony Campbell, Patrick O'Connell, Jalen Gaines, Shamar John Charles, and we've got Anthony Tyus as well on that list. I put him down on the signed, but he's actually practice squad, so let's put him in the right spot here. There we go. So that is your practice squad, and then we're going to see where we're at with Chris Paul, Darian Kendrick, and Chaz Surratt, linebacker from the Niners that you signed. We'll see how that shakes out with where those guys are standing on the roster. I'm going to guess the moment they're going to the roster, but we'll see on that. But that is your current practice squad. Thank you again, Jose. You're awesome for sending that over. I really, really, really do appreciate it. CR from Germany. I saw the roster and are pleased Reed and Martinez and Reed are still on the practice squad. Also like to see we claim some players with good potential from the Rams. So now just get a nose tackle. Well, greetings from Germany, man. It's good to see you, CR. And yeah, things are setting out well. Practice squad looking solid. You feel good about the guys you've gotten on there. Some of these guys' development long-term that you'd like to see, keep them on the roster, see what they can kind of turn maybe into. Running back depth looks a little bit better as we stand now, especially with Jarcadia right back on the roster here. Like what he brought to the table. Stuart, how excited am I? I'm super excited, Stuart. I'm hyped for this year, as hyped as I've been in recent years. That's for sure. Kyle says, very opening that Lawrence could have went to the Commanders but chose Seattle because he wanted to help build the program and he felt needed. He had his pick of some places he could have gone, no doubt. You know, he definitely was a guy that's well-respected in this league, a good all-around player, a leader type in that locker room as far as what, you know, his sort of reputation is coming out of Dallas. And so I think he's going to be a big get for us. Just come back to, again, you're returning all 11 starters to this defense. Every 11 starters are returning this defense. You've got 15 guys you're returning this defense that started games for you last year. And then on top of all that, you get Uchenna Nwosu back. You get DeMarcus Lawrence added into the fray. And oh, by the way, Nick Emenwari as well is going to play significant snaps on this team. I just put all that together and go, man, this defense is going to be good. It's going to be good. Jeffrey Thessel, thank you for the $2 donation, Jeffrey. Shaquille Griffin. I might have missed Mungles there too. Shaquille Griffin is a league average cornerback. Easy to replace. Yeah, that's about what he gives you. His league average play forward, and the team just feels like they've got enough of that in-house probably already, or that Darian Kendrick can give them that as well. It's not a monstrous loss. It's a little bit of a depth loss. I do think he gives you a steady Eddie ability in what he brings there at that corner position, but I think that's true as well. I do. Mungles, thank you for the $2 donation. Shaquille Griffin's released. Bring him back after San Francisco. Oh yeah, I think I answered that one. So I do think that's what they're going to do. Mungles is potentially look to do that with him. The whole fact you don't want the whole year salary guaranteed makes sense. And John Schneider has in the past done this with vets where he goes, no, we're going to let you out the week. I think with Artie Burns, you did this recently. You go, you'll be off the roster week 1. We'll get you back week 2. And then we can see how this thing all kind of shakes out in the wash. Amari Knight, like, did I spell it wrong? No, I spelled it right. CRB, most importantly, we don't keep this retirement home of players on the rosters like we often did with Carroll. And now it's young guys with upside. Old school principles with new school methods, I guess. That's right. You've gotten younger, bigger, and badder over the past couple of years. And certainly we had at times some aging points of the roster under Carroll where he would go with vets. I think in particular, you just come back to the old Holmgren line on defense and the lesson that Holmgren said he learned in roster building when he first came into Seattle and what he would do differently if he had to do it again. And that is that you go young, hungry, fast on defense, and you go a little bit older on offense. And if you look at the Seattle Seahawks this offseason, what do? Cooper Kupp, Sam Darnold, a little bit older over on that offensive side of the ball. Then defensively, you're very young coming back into it. Young and hungry. It's a good way to go, CR. It's a winning formula for building a football team. And it's just one of those lessons Mike talked about that I think is one of those just huge lessons that GMs should think about when they're building rosters, because I've seen a lot of it be confirmed over the years with other teams that have taken those paths. Oh, I'm going to build my defense a little bit older and aged. Doesn't work out too well. It's a bad recipe for success. Chris Osmond, hey Brandon, do you think we should sign Braden Swinson for his pass rush potential? He was a very highly ranked in draft projections, but fell to the fifth, and the Patriots just cut him. I liked him a lot coming out. He was a fun player for me. I did think he was going to be taken higher than where he did go in the draft. I think the fact that he slipped in the draft as he slipped was a little bit of an indicator to me that there's something problematic there, Chris, because good edge rushers just don't fall like that if they're as productive as he was. And to your point, he was very productive in college as far as pressure rates go. Looks a little bit like kind of a Frank Clark-ish type in sort of his build and how he moves. It's kind of some of that same sort of stuff going on. Again, liked his trying to get to his notes if I can find it here, but liked his tape quite a bit coming out. I can't find my notes on it. Great. I think I had fourth or fifth round grade on him. But I think he's going to have a hard time getting on here, Chris. I think that the team probably likes what they have in Jared Ivey a little bit more at this point. And it would come down to kind of one of those others on those guys. But also just, you see him cut like that from a Patriot squad that could use some pass rush help. I've referenced this a few times with teams on these kind of players that get released. If a team releases a guy from a positional group that's not particularly necessarily super strong on that team, I know they've got Gonzalez, or not Gonzalez, but I know they've got a couple of guys here and there, but they're not super loaded for bear, especially with a guy that could be a development guy long term. To me, there's a little bit of an indication in that there's probably something amiss with that particular player. But I'm not against it if the Hawks are high on him and they like what I liked with him coming out, especially the Frank Clark-ish kind of vibes he has. John could look at that and see like, wow, that reminds me of Frank. Let's see if we got something there. You never know. CRB, as a German, I'm praying we sign kicker Lenny Craig. German players who look solid for the Falcons and with the Pathway program wouldn't take a roster spot. I want to get out of Meyer's contract soon. I love your idea with that, CR. We sort of get ahead of the Meyer situation a year out, and start prepping for that. I kind of dig that. And again, like you say, it doesn't count like we have with Federico Moranges. Doesn't it count on the active practice squad if you have an international player? So I like how you're thinking, man. Couldn't hurt. And if it doesn't count as an active spot there to the practice squad, why not? I'll tell you this much, CR. I'm not looking at giving Jason Myers $7 million a year after this year. I'm not looking to do that. We're already paying him $6 million this year. So sign me up, man. Sign me up. All right. Well, we're going to put a bit of a button on this one today. 2.5 hours in. I think that's probably pretty darn good. Thank you guys, all of you, for all of the donations and the support here to the channel today. If you guys can for me, I know I ask it all the time, but if you can, this is just that moment in the show where I ask if you can hit that like button. Maybe get subbed on up if you get a chance. These type of things help this channel out tremendously. We've got the Seahawks Syndicate kicking off today. Now, I think that there's some folks that are getting a little confused out there. We've got I'm already seeing on X and stuff here, a little bit of like somehow that this is something to do with what Brian's got going on with their deal on their little quad thing that they've got going on. And it absolutely is not just our separate thing. I had a chance to hang out with all these guys during training camp, go out to dinner, and really kind of I feel like we got some good chemistry between the lot of us on this. And everybody's got their own particular outsider view on this team and how they look at it. So we'll be going live tonight at 5 o'clock with the inaugural of the series, the Seahawks Syndicate. This will be coming at you every Wednesday, the final month of the season, every month of the season and into the off season. So this is going to be looked to be a long-term thing. And we'll probably expand on it with time and maybe even hopefully get it to kind of a weekish, once a week point if it takes off and you guys really do like the show. But this is something that's going to be looked at for long term. And it's just as much as a chance to, on the channel, all of our channels, you're at your best by, cross-pollination and getting a little bit of that, back and forth. Not to mention, I think it helps out the conversation tremendously with the different perspectives, especially these three guys that are all very smart and all cover the Seattle Seahawks really well. So you'll want to be tuning into the show tonight, 5 p.m. It's going to be me, Dan Viennes of Seahawks Forever, Bryce Coots of Hawks Eye, and Mookie Alexander, who runs fieldgoals.com. So please do tune in on that at 5 o'clock tonight. I would really, really do appreciate it. We'll be out for that. We've got the B&B show tomorrow with season predictions at 12 o'clock. Me and Brendan will be turning that over as well. And then this weekend for members of the channel, I don't know if we're doing Saturday or Sunday, but we'll be doing a members-only show on Saturday or Sunday here. Be on the lookout for that in your community post if you happen to be a member of the channel. I thank you guys for watching today. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you can for me, please do hit that like button. We got a lot going on with our Seattle Seahawks right now, a lot percolating. We're ripping the Rams off. We got a strong roster. We're pretty healthy going into this upcoming matchup against the Niners where they're both limping in and they've got broken fingers and they've got a broken nose and their ankles rolled badly and they're kind of just flopping their way towards this game. So a lot looking good for your Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if I can say the vibes are immaculate right now, but they're pretty close. Pretty close to immaculate as far as you walk in the season. As good as you could say, I want as many good things to be going in the right direction as possible. I think your Seattle Seahawks are absolutely in that mode right now by what we're seeing from them. So a great day here so far from my perspective on the news of what we're hearing with this roster, getting Chris Paul Jr., basically stealing a 5th-round pick from the Rams, and he was thought to have been a steal of a 5th-round pick where he was taken at that time, and I think he might just be reinforcing your depth, one of those worrisome spots we have on this team where you say, okay, if Ernest Jones goes down, if Tyrese Knight goes down, who's going to be our answer there? Who do we call upon there? Maybe you got your answer there now in this kid. So a hell of a get. The Rams team would have liked to have stashed him away onto their practice squad. Always good when you can make your team better and then take down maybe what is going to be your biggest rival this upcoming season within this division as well, weakening them just a little bit in addition to that. Say nothing of grabbing Darian Kendrick, one of their cornerbacks as well, maybe thinning their cornerback room out just a little bit more in addition to all of that. So good things all around, and the vibes continue to be good as we head towards this season, and this team might be on the edge of being ready to go out and do some special things. So I hope you're locked in. I hope you're ready. I hope you're not thinking about next year. I hope you don't think that just because you lost DK and Geno that this year has to be a punt. Quite the opposite. You got all those defensive players returning. You got an offense coming along. You got an offensive system with Kubiak that is absolutely clicking in place, and you can see the returns and the benefits of it very, very fast here in Seattle right out the jump. So you better be locked in. You better be loaded, and you better be ready to be loaded for bear this upcoming season as it pertains to our Seahawks and what they're ready to go do. So be hyped, my fellow Seahawk faithful. Get jacked, my fellow Seahawk faithful. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.